The first person who called me the other woman was my sister. The second was my mother, although she never used the words. Meredith stood at the end of the long dining table in the lake house I had rented for our parents' 40th anniversary. Behind her, silver balloons spelled out love, except the E had come loose and was slowly rotating toward the wall. She dropped her phone beside the bowl of rosemary potatoes. I want everybody to see what Leah has been doing with my husband. On the screen was a picture of Nate entering my apartment building at 8:14 on Tuesday night. Then she swiped to a message he had sent me afterward. I still think about what we did to you. I should have told the truth years ago. My father looked at me as if I had overturned the table. My mother's eyes moved from the phone to my face, searching for guilt before she searched for an explanation. Meredith gave a short, broken laugh. 7 years. I've spent 7 years wondering when you'd try to take him back. Take him back? I said. Nate came to talk to me. At night. He showed up without asking, and you let him in. There it was. My mother's contribution. Not what did he want, not, are you all right? Just a soft, disappointed confirmation that whatever Meredith feared, I had caused it by opening my own front door. Outside, the lake was turning copper in the late afternoon sun. Inside, 8 battery candles flickered around a centerpiece Diane had called rustic, and Meredith had called funeral adjacent. I had spent 40 minutes trimming those branches in the parking lot of a grocery store because the rental photographs had shown a larger table. Now everyone was silent except the refrigerator, which had been making a grinding noise since noon. Read the whole conversation, I said. Meredith drew the phone against her chest. I read enough. That isn't your phone. It's our iPad. His messages sync. Then you have the rest of it. My father rubbed his palm over his mouth. Frank Mercer had a face built for disappointment, heavy brows, deep lines beside his nose, a lower lip that seemed naturally prepared to deliver a verdict. Leah, did Nate go into your apartment? Yes. How long was he there? I didn't time him. Meredith's laugh sharpened. I did. 43 minutes. That made me look at her differently. You followed him? I've been following my husband emotionally for years. Apparently, I needed to try it with my car. Even then, even shaking with rage, Meredith could land a line. My mother almost smiled. It vanished so quickly I might have imagined it. But Meredith saw it too. Meredith always saw where the attention was going. Aunt Carol had been transferring dinner rolls from a foil pan into a basket when Meredith began. She was still holding the plastic tongs in midair. Her husband, Rick, had become deeply interested in the label on his beer. Both of them were adults who had known me all my life, and neither said a word. I reached for Meredith's phone. She pulled it away. Don't. I want Mom and Dad to see what you cropped. I didn't crop anything. You stopped before my reply. What did you reply? My father asked. I looked at him. I told Nate coming over was a mistake. I told him not to contact me again unless Meredith knew about it. Convenient, Meredith said. Show them. Her thumb tightened against the edge of the case. You could have written that after you did whatever you wanted. What exactly do you think we did? I don't want to hear you say it. You dragged me into a dining room and called me the other woman in front of our family. I think we passed delicate a while ago. My mother touched Meredith's arm. Sit down before you make yourself sick. I'm not sick. I didn't say you were. You said make yourself sick, which is the same thing with extra steps. Meredith, Dad warned. No, it's fine. Everybody's very concerned about my tone. Leah sleeps with my husband, but let's make sure I'm pleasant about it. I did not sleep with Nate. The words hit the room and dropped straight through it. Aunt Carol put one roll in the basket with the solemn care of someone defusing a bomb. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to pick up the bowl of rosemary potatoes and throw it through the rotating E. Instead, I said, he came to tell me the truth about something that happened years ago. Meredith went still. It was only for a second. If I had not spent 38 years learning the weather of my sister's face, I would have missed it. "What truth?" my father asked. Meredith answered before I could. The truth that he never stopped loving her. Is that what you wanted to hear? That isn't what he said, but he does, right? She looked at me now, not our parents. You've always known it. I haven't spoken to him alone in years, except Tuesday. Yes, except Tuesday, when he showed up at my door looking like he hadn't slept in a week. My mother pressed 2 fingers to her temple. She had spent the day announcing that this weekend was about gratitude, a word she used when she wanted everyone to cooperate without discussing the cost. "Why didn't you call Meredith as soon as he came?" "Because I was surprised." "You weren't too surprised to invite him upstairs." "I didn't invite him. He was standing in the lobby. You could have talked there. Next to the mailboxes? That would have been safer." "For whom?" Mom looked wounded, which was one of her more effective expressions. "I'm trying to understand." "No, you're trying to find the exact point where this became my fault. I never said it was your fault." Meredith gave another brittle laugh. "You don't have to protect her, Mom. Leah can protect herself. It's her greatest talent." That was almost true. My greatest talent was making other people believe I did not require protection. The sliding door behind Dad stood open 3 inches, and a mosquito circled one of the battery candles. On the counter sat the lemon cake I had ordered from a bakery an hour away, because my parents had eaten lemon cake on their first date. I had driven it around every pothole like I was transporting a human organ. "Happy 40th, Diane Frank" curved across the top in my handwriting because the decorator had forgotten the inscription and handed me a tube of icing. My mother followed my eyes. "We are not doing this tonight." I nearly admired the sentence. Meredith had done this tonight. Nate had done something on Tuesday. Whatever had happened 7 years ago had apparently done itself, but I was the person Mom looked at when she said we were not doing it. "What would you like me to do?" I asked. "Lower your voice, for one thing." I hadn't raised it. Dad pushed his chair back. The legs scraped hard against the floor. "All right. Everybody needs to calm down." That meant Meredith could cry and Mom could accuse and I could stop reacting. Dad looked at me. "There's clearly something unresolved between you and Nate, not on my side. Then why let him stay 43 minutes? Because he told me my sister had lied to me." Meredith's face emptied. Mom's hand fell from her shoulder. Aunt Carol finally set down the tongs. Dad said, "Lied about what?" Meredith leaned toward me. "Go ahead." There was no fear in her voice now. It had hardened into a challenge. "Tell them, and I will make you pay for telling them. Stay quiet, and I will make you pay for staying quiet." 7 years earlier, she had sat on the edge of my bed with swollen eyes and told me she never meant to fall in love with Nate. Mom had stood in the doorway holding 2 cups of tea, though nobody had asked for tea. Dad waited downstairs because he said this was something sisters needed to work out. I had asked Meredith one question. Did anything happen before Nate left me? She had taken my hand in both of hers and said, "God, Leah, no." At the lake house, she held my gaze with the same wide gray eyes. I could have told them then. Nate had given me dates, places, conversations I remembered from the wrong side. He had described the first kiss. He had cried, though that had mostly irritated me. But I had spent 3 days trying to understand whether confession made him honest or merely tired, and I refused to let Meredith decide when I would speak. "I'm not doing this here," I said. Meredith's mouth twisted. "Because there's nothing to say." "No. Because this is Mom and Dad's anniversary." "Oh, don't pretend you care about their anniversary now." I looked around at the food I had cooked, the place cards I had made, the flowers I had cut and recut. "Right. I've been very casual about it." "That isn't what she means," Mom said. "I know what she means." Mom stepped closer and lowered her voice, which did not make the words private. "Whatever Nate told you, you should have come to us before meeting with him behind Meredith's back. He came to me, and you keep saying that as though your door opens by itself." Something inside me became quiet. It was not the satisfying kind of quiet people describe right before they deliver the perfect speech. I had no perfect speech. I could feel the seam inside my left shoe rubbing against my heel. I could smell the butter on the rolls. I remembered that the second cabin's water heater had to be reset manually, or Aunt Carol and Rick would wake up to cold showers. I looked at my father. "Do you think I'm having an affair with Nate?" He glanced at Meredith first. That was his answer. "I think," he said carefully, "that allowing him into your home showed very poor judgment. And the affair? We don't have all the facts. You have enough facts to ask me to defend myself." "Leah," Mom said, "please don't turn this into a courtroom." I asked Dad a yes or no question. Dad's jaw tightened. "Your sister is devastated. I can see that. She deserves some consideration." "So do I." "You're not the injured party here," Meredith said. I looked at her. "You might want to be very sure about that." For the first time, her anger cracked. Beneath it was something younger and uglier than fear. Recognition. Mom saw it. I knew she did because she immediately moved between us. "Enough," she said. "Leah, I think it would be best if you left for tonight." Aunt Carol whispered, "Diane." Mom did not turn around. Just until everyone cools down. The house was in my name. My credit card had paid the security deposit. My overnight bag was upstairs beside the welcome baskets I had assembled for everyone, including Meredith and Nate. Still, nobody corrected her. I nodded once. "Okay." Mom blinked, almost disappointed by how easily I agreed. "You can stay at the motel near the highway. We'll reimburse you." That nearly got the laugh out of me. "I'm going home." "It's 3 hours. I know. I drove it this morning." "Leah, don't be dramatic. I'm leaving quietly after you asked me to leave." I'm not sure what less dramatic would look like. I went upstairs. Meredith did not follow, though part of me expected her to. She had always preferred fighting in bedrooms, where childhood made an invisible third person in the room. I packed my toothbrush and the green dress Mom had selected for the anniversary photographs. On the dresser sat the printed schedule I had made. Drinks at 5, dinner at 6:30, cake at 8, sunrise boat ride for anyone insane enough to be awake. I left it there. Downstairs, nobody had moved. I picked up my purse and keys. Mom followed me to the front door. "Text when you get home." I looked at her. "What?" she said. "I'm still your mother. That seems to mean whatever you need it to mean." Her face changed, but I was already outside. I had been driving for 19 minutes when she called. For 1 weak second, I thought she might apologize. Instead, she said, "What's the code for the lockbox on the second cabin?" I watched the dark road unspool between the trees. "Ask Meredith," I said. "She doesn't know it. Then I guess she'll have to figure it out." "Leah, Carol's things are in there." "I know. Don't punish Carol because you're angry with us." There it was again. Every consequence became mine the moment I declined to prevent it. "I'm not punishing anybody," I said. "I left, like you asked." Then I ended the call, turned my phone face down in the cup holder, and kept driving. At the first gas station outside town, I pulled beneath a light that made my car look jaundiced and checked my phone. 9 missed calls. 3 were from Mom, 2 from Dad, 1 from Aunt Carol, and 3 from a number I had deleted 7 years ago but still recognized. Nate. There were also 17 text messages. Mom had apparently found the lockbox code because she had moved on to asking where I'd put the extra towels. Dad had written, "Call your mother," which was less a message than the family motto. Aunt Carol wanted me to know she and Rick were fine and had found a motel with surprisingly firm pillows. Meredith had sent a single sentence. "If there was nothing between you, why are you running away?" I set my phone on the passenger seat and went inside to buy coffee. The cashier was a woman around my age with silver glitter on her eyelids and a paperback open beside the register. She glanced at my dress, then at the coffee. "Wedding?" she asked. "Anniversary." "Yours?" "My parents'." She looked at the clock. It was barely 7:30. "You escaped early. Apparently I'm having an affair." She stared at me for half a second, then slid 2 packets of powdered creamer across the counter. "Take an extra." That was the most support I'd gotten all evening. I drank the coffee in the parking lot and opened Nate's messages. Please answer. I'm sorry. I didn't know she followed me. Then, 6 minutes later, I'll tell them. She can't keep doing this. I read that one twice. Nate had always had a talent for placing himself near responsibility without actually touching it. He would stand in the kitchen while I cooked and say, "We should really clean as we go." He would announce that we needed to leave a party, then wander off to say goodbye to every person individually while I collected coats and found the car. Once, when our upstairs neighbor's bathtub leaked through our ceiling, Nate spent 40 minutes researching tenants' rights while I moved the furniture. I'll tell them sounded suspiciously like a future in which I arranged the time, invited the people, and handed him the correct words. I typed, "Do not contact my family tonight." The dots appeared immediately. Can I call you? No. Leah, I never meant for this to happen. I almost asked which part. His visit, Meredith following him, my mother evicting me from a house I had rented, the first kiss with my sister. Instead, I put the car in gear. 3 nights earlier, I had been on my couch eating sesame noodles directly from the carton when the lobby buzzer rang. I assumed it was the downstairs neighbor who had been locked out twice that month and considered my apartment an extension of building management. Hello? Leah. Nate's voice had changed less than his face. It still had that low, careful quality that made even ordinary sentences sound rehearsed. I stood up so quickly I spilled noodles on my shirt. What are you doing here? I need 10 minutes. No, please. Does Meredith know you're here? He didn't answer. That should have ended it. I wish I could say it did. But there are people you stop loving long before you stop wanting answers from them. I went downstairs instead of buzzing him in. Nate stood in the lobby with both hands shoved into the pockets of a navy jacket I remembered helping him choose. It fit more tightly through the shoulders now. There was gray in his beard and a small scar near his chin that I didn't recognize. He looked tired, not romantic tired, not soulful, rain-drenched tired. He looked like a man who had spent several nights on an uncomfortable couch and was beginning to understand that couches did not make good moral witnesses. You have 10 minutes, I said. I don't want to do this in the lobby. That sounds like a you problem. The elevator opened behind me, and Mrs. Alvarez from 4B stepped out carrying a tiny white dog in a sweater. She looked at Nate, looked at me, and slowed down without technically stopping. Fine, I said. Upstairs. Mrs. Alvarez waited until the elevator doors were closing to give me a thumbs down. Inside my apartment, Nate stood near the door while I moved the noodle carton off the coffee table. You want water? No. Good. You're at 9 minutes. He tried to smile. Nothing happened. Meredith and I have been having problems. You wasted 30 seconds saying something I've known since 2019. She talks to you about us? She talks at me about you. I've asked her not to. I didn't know. You know what? I believe that. He looked around my living room. It wasn't the apartment we had shared. Nothing in it belonged to our life together except a squat blue lamp we had found at a flea market. Nate's eyes landed on it and I saw him recognize it. I turned the lamp off. What do you want? He lowered himself onto the edge of the armchair. She keeps saying, I'm rewriting our history. That would be rich. She says we didn't start until June. You got together in June. We told you we got together in June. The room changed temperature. I stayed standing. Keep talking. He rubbed his palms against his jeans. The first time we kissed was March 6th. No. Leah. No. On March 6th, you took me to dinner after Dad's surgery. We were supposed to go to dinner. I canceled. You said you had a migraine. I met Meredith. I could see that night with insulting clarity. I had brought Ty food to his apartment because I believed he was sick. He hadn't answered for 20 minutes, then opened the door in sweatpants with damp hair. I had been worried enough to touch his forehead. Where? I asked. Outside Milo's. Milo's was a bar Meredith used to call depressing because the lighting showed everyone's real age. Why were you with her? She called. She was upset. About what? She'd seen Cameron with someone. Cameron had taken Meredith to 4 dinners and then informed her they were not exclusive. In Meredith's retelling, this had become a devastating abandonment. Mom sent her flowers, so you comforted her with your mouth. Nate closed his eyes. It wasn't planned. Nothing is ever planned by people who make plans and then lie about them. We'd been talking before that. How long? A few weeks. I stared at him. What kind of talking? He looked at the floor. That is a very simple question. She was checking on me. You were gone so much with your dad, and we were having problems. My hand tightened around the back of the dining chair. Dad's bypass had been February 17th. Mom refused to drive into the city, so I took him to every follow-up appointment. I filled his prescriptions, changed the dressings he was too embarrassed to let Mom touch, and slept on my parents' couch for 10 nights because Diane said she could not hear him breathing from her side of the bed. Nate had sent supportive messages. Proud of you. You're a good daughter. Miss you here. Apparently Meredith had been supporting him through the hardship of my father's open heart surgery, too. Did you sleep with her before you ended things with me? Nate stood, then sat again. I heard my own voice from 7 years earlier asking Meredith the same question while she held both my hands. God, Leah, no. When? The first time was April 2nd. I did not ask where. He told me anyway. A motel off Route 17 after drinks with Meredith's co-workers. He said the name as if precision were a form of respect. I knew the place. We had passed its flickering red vacancy sign on our way to my parents' house dozens of times. You broke up with me April 21st. Yes. And you slept with her again between those dates? Yes. How many times? I don't know. You know? 3. I laughed then. I couldn't help it. It came out ugly and loud. Nate looked startled. Sorry, I said. I was just remembering how Meredith cried when she told me you two had kissed for the first time in June. Mom brought tea. I'm sorry. Did Mom know? I don't know. That wasn't what I asked. I never told her. I walked to the apartment door and opened it. Leah, I need you to understand. No, you need me to forgive you because your marriage is bad and you're trying to turn guilt into a personality. That's not why I came. Then why now? He stood slowly. Because last week I said something about March. Meredith got angry. She said I was confused and that nothing happened until June. I told her I wasn't confused. And? She said if I ever told you otherwise, I would destroy this family. I looked at him. He gave a small, helpless shake of his head. I think she believes it now. Her version. No, she needs you to believe it. That's different. She's not well. Don't do that. I'm not insulting her. You're explaining her so you can avoid naming what she did. You cheated. She lied. Those are verbs, Nate. Nice and sturdy. He stepped into the hallway. I loved you. I nearly closed the door on his hand. Don't. I did. You loved being taken care of. Meredith made you feel wanted while I was busy keeping my father alive. That isn't some tragic love story. His face folded in a way that would once have undone me. It didn't. Before I shut the door, he said, there are things she sent me. Messages. I still have some of them. Congratulations. I can show you. I don't need exhibits. I needed the truth 7 years ago. After he left, I stood at my window and watched him cross the courtyard. He stopped under a street lamp and looked up. Not at my window, but generally, like a man in a movie who expected the camera to understand him. A dark SUV waited across the street. At the time, I barely noticed it. Now, driving home from the lake, I could see Meredith behind the wheel. My phone lit up again on the passenger seat. Dad this time. Your mother is very upset. We need you to come back in the morning so we can discuss this as a family. A second message followed. Also, where did you put the candles for the cake? I pulled into a rest area, picked up the phone, and stared at both questions. Then I typed, top kitchen drawer, left of the stove. I hated myself a little as soon as I sent it. Dad replied with a thumbs up. Nothing about the morning. Nothing about Meredith. Nothing about whether he believed I had slept with her husband. I deleted my directions before I could send them twice, set the phone back down, and drove the rest of the way home in the dark. By the time I reached my building, my coffee had gone cold and the seam in my left shoe had rubbed my heel raw. Mrs. Alvarez was coming in from her dog's final walk when I crossed the courtyard. She was wearing a pink robe under a raincoat despite there being no rain, and the dog had changed into a sweater with a large strawberry on it. She held the lobby door for me. Did the thumbs down work? No, I knew I should have done this. She raised both thumbs and pointed them toward the floor. I appreciate the clarification. Was that the old one? The old what? Man. Yes. She studied my face. He has weak shoulders. I had never considered Nate's shoulders weak. They were ordinary shoulders, broad enough to fill out a jacket but apparently unable to support the consequences of his own decisions. Mrs. Alvarez nodded as if I had agreed. You want me to tell him you moved if he comes back? I would love that. What state? Surprise me. Upstairs, I kicked off my shoes and left the anniversary dress in a heap on the bathroom floor. My apartment looked exactly as it had that morning, which felt insulting. The mug in the sink had a faint brown ring around the bottom. A library book lay face down on the arm of the couch. The blue lamp waited in the corner with all the patience of an object that had survived a relationship through no merit of its own. My phone showed 5 more messages. Mom, Carol and Rick are settled. Please call me. Dad, we found the candles. Aunt Carol, I'm awake if you need me. Nate, I told her I was going to speak to you. She said she didn't think I'd actually do it. Then Meredith, you've wanted to destroy my marriage from the beginning. I read that twice, too. The beginning. Not since Tuesday. Not since Nate walked into my building. The beginning was suddenly the dangerous part, and Meredith knew it. I opened the thread with Nate. Tell her what you told me. Leave my name out of whatever happens after that. His response came before I had time to put the phone down. She won't listen. That is no longer my problem. Leah, please. I blocked him. It was not satisfying. There was no rush of power, no sensation of a door slamming inside me. The screen simply returned to my list of conversations, where Mom's name rose to the top as she called again. I let it ring. She called a second time. When it stopped, Aunt Carol called. I answered because cowardice is easier to forgive in an aunt. Aunts are allowed to vanish during combat and return with dessert. Are you home? She asked. Just got in. Thank God. Your mother said you wouldn't answer. She has an excellent grasp of the situation. Carol sighed. In the background, I heard Rick ask whether the motel ice machine was supposed to make that noise. Honey, I'm sorry about tonight. Which part? All of it. Were the pillows firm? There was a small pause. Shockingly. I sat on the couch. Why didn't you say anything? I didn't know what to say. You could have said you didn't think I was sleeping with Nate. I don't think that, but you didn't say it. No. Aunt Carol had the decency to let the silence remain uncomfortable. Finally, she said, Meredith was hysterical. She was also prepared. She had a photograph and exactly one piece of a conversation. I know. And everybody just looked at me, I know. Dad asked how long Nate was in my apartment like he was estimating whether intercourse could fit into the schedule. Carol made a startled sound that turned into a cough. I'm glad someone finds that funny. I don't. I mean, I do a little, but I'm horrified. Multitasking. Your mother is sitting with Meredith now. Frank went to bed. Of course he did. He says his blood pressure is up. There it was, arriving right on schedule, the medical weather report that usually summoned me into action. Does he need a hospital? No? Diane checked it twice. It's high, but not dangerously. Then he should rest. Carol waited, perhaps expecting me to ask for the numbers, the medication, whether Dad had eaten too much salt. I knew exactly how his worry presented. The pulse in his neck became visible. He pressed his lips together between readings as though discipline could lower systolic pressure. I said nothing. Meredith told everyone Nate has been obsessed with you for years. Carol continued. She said you encourage it without being obvious. That's convenient. She said you wore blue to their wedding because it was his favorite color. I looked at the blue lamp. I wore blue because Mom picked the dress. I know that. Did Mom mention it? No? Of course not. Carol's voice softened. Leah, your mother makes bad choices when Meredith gets upset. My mother makes very consistent choices when Meredith gets upset. She thinks Meredith is fragile. Meredith is about as fragile as a crowbar. That got a real laugh. Then Carol caught herself and guilt thinned it out. I should have spoken up, she said. I'm sorry. I believed her, which did not help as much as I wanted it to. Did Mom know? I asked. Know what? That Meredith and Nate were involved before he left me. The motel room went quiet on Carol's end. Even the ice machine seemed to pause. Why would you ask that? Nate told me it started in March. March? 6 weeks before we broke up. Oh, Leah. I closed my eyes. Not surprise. Not exactly. What? I don't know anything. That isn't what your voice just did. My voice didn't do anything. You Mercers are incredible. Even your vocal cords have plausible deniability. I knew your mother was worried before Meredith told you about Nate. That's all. Worried about what? She kept saying Meredith had made a mess and needed to slow down. I assumed she meant Meredith was seeing him too soon after your breakup. Did she say when? No. She didn't give me dates. Did she seem surprised when Meredith announced they were together? Carol took too long. No, she said. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. There was a hairline crack above the window that my landlord had painted over 3 times. It always returned. Leah, I don't know what that means. It means Mom knew something, or suspected. Does that distinction improve it? No. Carol asked if I wanted her to come to my apartment in the morning. I said no. She offered to go back to the lake house and confront Diane. I said no to that too. I did not want my truth delivered by an aunt in a motel robe while Meredith cried into the anniversary napkins. After we hung up, I checked the family group conversation. Meredith had posted a photograph of Mom and Dad standing behind the cake. Dad's hand rested on Mom's shoulder. Mom had managed to smile, though her eyes were swollen. The silver E had finally turned backward. Happy 40 years to the 2 people who taught me what loyalty looks like, Meredith had written. Aunt Carol had reacted with a heart 12 minutes before calling me. I muted the conversation. I did not sleep much. Every time I drifted off, I saw the dark SUV across the street and Meredith sitting inside it, watching Nate enter my building. I wondered how long she had waited before following him, whether she had rehearsed the accusation in the car, whether any part of her had wanted to knock on my door and hear the truth before she assembled an audience. At 7:15, someone knocked. I opened the door wearing an old t-shirt and 1 sock. Evan stood there with 2 coffees and a paper bag tucked under his arm. He was tall in a way that made most doorways look poorly planned, with a crooked nose and dark hair that never stayed combed for more than 10 minutes. We had been seeing each other for 4 months, which was long enough for him to know my coffee order, but not long enough for me to feel entitled to his Saturday morning. "You're supposed to be at a lake," he said. "You're supposed to text before arriving." I did. My phone was face down under a couch cushion. "You said you got home early," he added. That sentence had the emotional stability of a shopping cart with 1 bad wheel. I stepped aside. He handed me a coffee and looked at the discarded green dress on the bathroom floor, visible from the entryway. Did the anniversary become clothing optional? My sister accused me of sleeping with her husband. Evan stopped removing his jacket. Oh. It was a more exciting evening than advertised. He set the paper bag on the counter. Do I ask questions, offer food, or help dispose of something heavy? Food. Excellent. I brought 2 kinds of Danish because the woman at the bakery said the apricot one was life-changing, and I thought that sounded like unfair pressure on a pastry. We sat at my small kitchen table. I told him what had happened without making eye contact, peeling thin strips from the cardboard sleeve around my coffee. Evan knew Nate was my former fiancé and Meredith's current husband. I had explained it on our fourth date, after 3 glasses of wine and a long argument with myself in the restaurant restroom. Evan's response had been, "That seems healthy," followed immediately by, "Sorry, was that the outside voice?" Now he listened until I finished. "Do you believe Nate?" he asked. "I believe the dates." "That wasn't my question. I believe him about what happened." Meredith's face confirmed it. "And your mother? I think she knew. He tore his Danish in half." "About Tuesday?" "About 7 years ago." He sat back. My phone started vibrating beneath the couch cushion. I found it and saw Mom's name. "Answer it," Evan said. "I'll be quiet. That would be a first." He raised his coffee in acknowledgement. I answered. Mom did not say, "Hello." "Your father has his stress test Tuesday. I know. You're still taking him, correct?" I looked at Evan. His expression did not change. "No." Mom went silent. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I'm not taking him, but I can't drive in that traffic." "You can? You don't like to. You know parking in the city makes me panic. Then ask Meredith. She has work. So do I. Leah, this is your father's heart, and I'm not stopping him from going. You are punishing us. No, I'm unavailable. You've never been unavailable." The words came out with such naked confusion that I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Then this will be good practice," I said. After I hung up, Evan slid the apricot Danish toward me. "Life-changing?" I asked. "Let's not overpromise." My phone buzzed again, but this time it was Meredith. "Mom said you'll calm down. You always do." I read it with my thumb resting above the keyboard. Then I opened a new message and typed, "You have until next Sunday to remove your boxes from my garage." For the first time all morning, I did not hesitate before pressing send. The dots appeared, vanished, then reappeared. "What boxes?" I handed the phone to Evan. He read the message. "Bold opening strategy. She has 11 boxes in my garage. She doesn't know. She knows. She just doesn't know she knows." Meredith called before I could answer. I watched her name pulse on the screen. "You don't have to pick up," Evan said. "That's what I've been telling everyone all morning." I answered and put the phone to my ear. "Next Sunday. Not today." "What the hell is wrong with you? Would you like the list alphabetically or in order of discovery?" "Mom said you're refusing to take Dad to his test. Mom can take him. She can't drive downtown. She has a license, a car, and 6 days to look at a map. You know she gets anxious. I get anxious when people accuse me of sleeping with married men, but no one seems to be reorganizing traffic for me." Evan looked down at his coffee to hide a smile. Meredith's voice dropped. I pictured her outside the rental house, one arm wrapped around herself, lake wind lifting the ends of her dark hair. "This is exactly what you do. What do I do? You punish people quietly so you can pretend you're not angry. You announced an imaginary affair over rosemary potatoes." "It wasn't imaginary. No, you let him into your apartment. You kept it from me. You listened to him talk about our marriage. I listened to him talk about my relationship. You don't have a relationship with Nate. I did in March 7 years ago." She stopped breathing for one beat. I continued. "So did you, apparently. Nate is lying. Why? Because he wants out of our marriage without admitting he's the problem. That makes no sense. It makes perfect sense if you know him. I knew him for 5 years, and I've known him for 7. There it was again, winning by duration. Meredith could turn a calendar into a weapon and still insist dates did not matter. Then you know whether he was at Milo's with you on March 6th. The silence stretched. Evan stopped pretending not to listen. Meredith said, "Is that what he told you? That's not an answer. I don't remember what I did on some random night 7 years ago. You remembered June 3rd. Because that was our first real date. That's not what you told me. You said it was the first time anything happened. You're twisting my words. Were you with him at Milo's on March 6th? I was going through a terrible time. The answer entered the room before either of us acknowledged it. I pressed my fingers against my forehead. So yes, he was my friend. He was my fiancé. You two were miserable. We had problems. That didn't make him available. You were never there. Dad had heart surgery. I know why you weren't there, Leah. I'm saying you weren't. It landed because some part of me had spent years saying the same thing to myself. If I had gone home more often, if I had noticed the damp hair, the changed passcode, the way Meredith began defending Nate in arguments I had not invited her into, if I had been a better daughter and a more attentive fiancée simultaneously, perhaps nobody would have betrayed me. Then I looked at Evan. He wasn't watching me with pity. He looked angry. Not at me. I said, "Did Mom know?" Meredith's tone changed. "Leave her out of this. She threw me out of a house I paid for because you showed her half a message. She's already in it. Mom was trying to save the weekend from the person who planned it. She knew I was upset. That isn't what I asked. You always do this. You reduce everything to one cruel little question and act like feelings don't matter. Did Mom know you were involved with Nate before he left me?" Meredith exhaled hard. "Ask her." Then she hung up. I kept the phone against my ear until the call screen disappeared. Evan pushed the apricot Danish closer to me again. I think it's working up to the responsibility. I broke off a corner. It tasted like butter and expensive jam. That is annoyingly good. I didn't want to say anything. "Thank you for giving me space. Do you want me to leave?" The question surprised me. Most people in my family announced what they wanted and called it helping. "No," I said. "I need to go through the garage." "Okay. You don't have to help." "I know. It's mostly storage boxes. I assumed they weren't live snakes. You don't know, Meredith." He smiled, but he waited. I realized he was asking permission without turning it into a ceremony. "You can help," I said. The garage was one of 6 narrow units behind my building, with a metal door that shrieked every time I raised it. My car barely fit when the shelves were empty. They had not been empty in years. Meredith's belongings occupied the entire right wall. Some boxes were neatly labeled in her handwriting: winter clothes, college, Christmas kitchen. Others had my handwriting because I had packed them when she and Nate moved from their first apartment into their house. Evan stood with his hands on his hips. 11? I may have rounded down. We counted 16. One contained decorative glass cylinders from Meredith's wedding. Another held white artificial branches woven with tiny lights. I remembered untangling those lights at 2 a.m. in my parents' dining room while Meredith cried because the florist had suggested greenery, and green was not the emotional palette. Evan lifted a wooden sign from the box. MN Forever had been painted across it in gold. He looked at me over the top. "Don't," I said. "I'm searching for a neutral observation. Search quietly. I'm impressed by the confidence of the typography." I took the sign and laid it face down. The wedding had happened 14 months after Nate left me. Mom called that more than enough time. She asked me to help because Meredith was overwhelmed and because my refusal would have forced everyone to explain why the bride's sister was absent. I addressed invitations. I corrected the caterer's count. I drove the centerpieces home afterward because Meredith and Nate left for their honeymoon before sunrise. No one had ever returned for them. Evan pulled down a box marked Leah, keep. That one's mine. It had come from my parents' attic when they replaced the insulation. Inside were college notebooks, 2 framed photographs, a cracked jewelry box, and a thick paper planner from the year Dad had his surgery. I touched the cover but did not open it. "What?" Evan asked. "Nothing." He waited. "I wrote everything in these: appointments, dinner plans, errands, dates." "Yes." The words sat between us. I put the planner back. Nate's confession did not become more true because my handwriting agreed with it. Still, I moved the box to the opposite wall, away from Meredith's things. We stacked her 16 boxes near the garage door. It took almost an hour. Evan did not ask why I had stored so much for so long until we reached the last one, a plastic tub filled with holiday serving dishes. She doesn't have room, I said before he could ask. He wiped dust from his palms. That wasn't my question. I know. Why did you keep saying yes? Because each thing was temporary. He nodded toward the wall of boxes. That's how storage works, temporarily, but in a tower. I laughed despite myself. Then he said, "Does your family know about me?" The laugh disappeared. They know I'm seeing someone. Do they know my name? Mom does. That's not what I asked. I looked at him. He leaned against the workbench, not angry exactly, but no longer hiding behind pastries and jokes. I'm not trying to make today about me. I just realized I know the name of the bar where your sister kissed your fiancé, and your father may not know my first name. That isn't because I'm ashamed of you. I didn't say it was. My family gets into things. I've noticed. I wanted something that wasn't theirs. His expression softened, but not completely. Keeping something private and keeping someone outside aren't always the same. I know. Do you? I folded my arms. He glanced at the boxes. You don't have to answer right now. That's convenient after asking. Bad habit. I say the thing I mean and then expect it to stay said. It was one of the reasons I liked him, and at that moment it was also extremely irritating. I was going to invite you to Thanksgiving, I said. The Thanksgiving you just canceled. I didn't cancel Thanksgiving. I canceled hosting. Important distinction. It is to me. He nodded. Okay? He did not force a resolution. He helped lower the garage door, kissed me once in the courtyard, and left for a furniture delivery he had already delayed by 40 minutes without mentioning it. I stood there watching his truck turn the corner and understood that he had rearranged his morning for me without making me feel indebted. It was such a small thing that it hurt. Mom arrived shortly after 2 with the remains of the anniversary cake. She carried the bakery box in both hands as though it were evidence of her good intentions. She had changed out of the cream blouse I'd chosen for the photographs and into a lavender cardigan buttoned incorrectly at the bottom. "You left this," she said. "I left most things. I didn't want it thrown away." "So you drove 3 hours with it?" "Your father drove. He's at home now. You let Dad drive with his blood pressure up? It was normal this morning. Then he can probably manage Tuesday." Her mouth tightened. "May I come in?" I stepped aside. She noticed the second coffee cup on the table immediately. "Did you have company?" "Yes." "Who?" "Evan. The man I'm seeing. You never said it was serious. I'm not sure what it is. Was he here all night?" The question was so wildly inappropriate and so perfectly Diane that I almost admired it. "No. I was only asking." "You weren't." She set the cake on the counter. Half the icing inscription remained. 40 years had been cut through the middle. Leaving Diane F.R. Meredith says you threatened to put her things on the street. I told her to collect them by next Sunday. She can't organize a move in a week. It's 16 boxes, not a piano. She's dealing with enough. So am I. Mom lowered herself into a kitchen chair. Without makeup, she looked older than she had the day before. Nate didn't come to the lake house. I'm aware. He isn't answering Meredith. I blocked him. She thinks he's with you. He isn't. I believe you. The words should have mattered. They didn't. You didn't yesterday. Yesterday was confusing. It was confusing because you refused to read the rest of the conversation. Meredith was in shock. Meredith was controlling the room. She was terrified. Of the truth? Mom looked toward the window. I sat across from her. Did you know? She rubbed a spot of dried frosting from the bakery box. Meredith told me she had feelings for Nate. When? I don't remember. Yes, you do. It was a long time ago. Before or after April 21st? Her fingers stopped moving. I felt my pulse in the raw place above my heel. Mom. She was in a very vulnerable state, she said. Before or after? You were focused on your father. Meredith had just been humiliated by Cameron. Nate was lonely. Everyone was emotional. The room seemed to narrow around us. You knew before he left me. I knew she was confused. You knew. I told her not to do anything. And when she did? Mom looked down at the half-destroyed cake. I told her she had to wait, she said, because you were strong and she wasn't. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood her. Told her to wait for what? Mom lifted her eyes. To make any decisions. She had already made a decision. She was confused. She kissed my fiancé. Mom flinched. The movement was tiny, but it answered me. She told you about the kiss. Not immediately. How long after? A few days. And you didn't tell me. I told her it could never happen again. That wasn't my question. I was trying to stop it. You were trying to manage it. What would telling you have accomplished? Your father was recovering. You were exhausted. Nate was already complaining that you were never around. I stared at her. Mom heard it too late. He was complaining to you? Not directly. Meredith told you. She said he was lonely, and you thought that made sense? No. I thought the entire thing was inappropriate. The word was so mild I almost admired it. Wearing jeans to a funeral was inappropriate. Taking someone else's fiancé to a dark bar and sticking your tongue in his mouth required a sturdier adjective. When you told Meredith to wait, did you mean wait to see Nate again or wait to tell me? Mom's fingers returned to the frosting spot. She scraped it with her thumbnail until a flake of blue icing came loose. Answer me. I told her that if she and Nate believed their feelings were real, they needed to do things in the right order. They were already in the wrong order. Yes. So you told her to hide it until he left me. I told her Nate had to make a choice without being influenced. By the woman he was sleeping with? I didn't know they were sleeping together. You knew about the kiss. I knew about one kiss. And that was apparently within the family allowance. Don't be ugly. That stopped me. Mom's face changed as soon as she said it, but not quickly enough. Ugly, I repeated. I meant your tone. You always mean my tone when the words are inconvenient. I came here to talk. You came here with leftover cake and a ride request. I already told you I believe you about Tuesday. You believed Meredith yesterday. I believed what I saw. You saw a man enter a building. I saw your former fiancé enter your building at night and send you an intimate message about the affair you helped them hide. I did not help them have an affair. No, you just helped them give it a cleaner start date. Mom pushed back from the table. I will not sit here and be blamed for choices two grown adults made. Then why did you let me be blamed for choices I didn't make? Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I stood and carried the cake to the refrigerator, because if I remained seated, I was going to put my hand through it. The box did not fit on the top shelf. I had to move a jar of pickles and turn the cake sideways, which smeared the remaining frosting against the cardboard. Mom watched me do it. I was afraid for her, she said. Of what? You remember what she was like after Cameron. I remember you treating 4 dates like a divorce. She stopped going to work. For 2 days. She drove to Lake Mason alone and didn't tell anyone where she was. She was 31. She was distraught. She spent the night at a bed and breakfast and posted sunrise pictures. We didn't know that until later. So because Meredith went on an unannounced mini vacation, you decided she was allowed to take my fiancé? I didn't allow anything. You keep saying that while describing all the ways you made it possible. Mom's eyes filled. She blinked hard, angry at the tears. You were functioning. Your father needed you, and you handled everything. Meredith couldn't even get out of bed. I couldn't get out of bed after Nate left me. You did. Because Dad had an appointment, you see? That's what I mean. I looked at her. She meant it as praise. That was the worst part. Mom reached across the table as if she might take my hand, but I moved it into my lap. I thought if I could keep everyone calm, time would soften it, she said. I thought maybe Nate and Meredith would realize it was just infatuation. Then he ended things with you, and I was furious with both of them. You hid it very well at their wedding. 14 months had passed. You measured the time from the wrong end. What does that mean? You started counting after I found out. They started in March. Mom's shoulders sagged. I'm not proud of how it happened. You let me ask her to her face whether anything happened before the breakup. I wasn't in the bedroom. You were in the doorway. She went pale. She remembered the tea. "You heard her lie to me," I said. I thought she meant they hadn't slept together. She said nothing happened. I didn't know what details you had discussed. You stood there and let me believe her. She was going to marry him, Leah. What did you want me to do by then? Break them apart so you could have him back? I wanted reality. You didn't want him back. That doesn't mean she was entitled to a lie. Mom pressed her lips together. You came to the wedding because you told me Dad's heart couldn't take a family rupture. He was still recovering. He has been recovering for 7 years. That's unfair. No, it's arithmetic. She got up and carried her purse to the door. I thought she was leaving, but she stopped with her hand on the knob. Your father did not know, she said. You expect me to believe that? He knew Meredith and Nate had feelings for each other. He did not know anything happened before the breakup. What did you tell him? That Meredith felt guilty because she had fallen in love with someone who used to belong to you, used to belong to me. The phrase was so efficient. It moved the property line without mentioning who had moved it. Did Dad ask when she fell in love? You know your father. Yes, he prefers nouns without dates. Mom turned toward me. I'm sorry you were hurt. Were? I'm trying, Leah. No, you're trying to get out of this apartment without becoming the kind of mother who did what you did. That is cruel. It's accurate. She opened the door. Are you taking Dad Tuesday? I asked. Her head turned sharply. I had surprised her. Yes, she said. Good. I will probably have to leave at 6 in the morning. Then you should get some sleep. She left without taking the cake. I waited until I heard the lobby door close before opening my refrigerator. The crushed blue inscription had smeared onto the white frosting. I cut myself a piece from the intact corner and ate it standing at the counter. It was excellent cake. At 4, Dad called. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but I wanted to know which version Mom had given him during the drive home. Hey, he said, hey, your mother is pretty torn up. She told me a lot of things. I set my plate in the sink. Did you know Meredith kissed Nate before he left me? Dad took a breath that crackled through the phone. No. Did you know she had feelings for him? Your mother said something after you and Nate broke up. After? Yes. She says she told you Meredith felt guilty. She did, but I thought she meant guilty for dating him so soon. I didn't know there had been anything before. I believed him. Dad had many ways of avoiding conflict, but he was a bad liar when surprised. His voice became formal, and he overused my name. Now he sounded tired and genuinely bewildered. Did you ask? I said. Ask what? When it started, I assumed your mother knew the details, and Mom assumed details would upset you. That's not fair. That's what she said. He went quiet. I could picture him at the kitchen table in the house where I grew up, one hand flat against the wood, the other gripping his phone. Mom would be in their bedroom closing drawers harder than necessary. Why didn't you tell me any of this? He asked. I didn't know. I mean, after Nate came to you. Because Meredith accused me before I could decide what to do. You could have explained at the lake. I tried. You said he told you she lied. You didn't say how. Would it have mattered? You wouldn't even say whether you believed I slept with him. I didn't think you did. That is not what your face said. I was shocked. So was I. Meredith had a picture of a doorway and the message. I closed my eyes. Dad sighed. I'm not saying we handled it well. You asked me to leave. Your mother asked you. And you stopped her? No. There was the honest answer. He cleared his throat. Meredith says Nate is trying to rewrite the beginning because he wants a separation. Maybe he does. She says you're encouraging him. I blocked his number. Can you show her that? I could also submit to a full inspection of my bed sheets, but I won't. Don't be sarcastic. It's the only thing keeping this conversation affordable. Despite himself, Dad made a small sound that might have been a laugh. It disappeared into a cough. Then he said, I'm sorry, Leah. It was not enough. It was also more than Mom had managed. For which part? I don't know yet. That was honest, too. Figure it out, I said. Then call me. He did not ask about Tuesday. I appreciated that enough to hate that I appreciated it. After we hung up, Evan texted, "You okay?" I wrote, "No." His reply came a moment later. "Do you want company or distance?" I stared at the choices. My family never offered choices. They offered needs and waited for me to arrange myself around them. Company, but no advice. Deal. I'll bring dinner and have no opinions until dessert. I went to the garage while I waited for him. The paper planner was still in the box against the left wall. Dust had collected in the spiral binding. I carried it upstairs and sat at the kitchen table with it closed beneath my palms. For several minutes, I did nothing. Then I opened to March. My handwriting filled the squares with Dad's medication changes, grocery lists, and appointment times. On March 6th, I had written Nate, dinner, 7:30, then crossed it out in blue ink. Beside it, squeezed into the margin, were 4 words, migraine, brought soup anyway. I turned the page. March 12th held a photograph I had tucked between the weeks and forgotten. Dad sat at my parents' dining table with a heart-shaped recovery pillow against his chest and a birthday cupcake in front of him. Mom leaned over his shoulder. I stood on one side, tired but smiling. In the kitchen doorway behind us, Nate and Meredith were looking at each other. Not smiling, not touching, just looking with the private concentration of 2 people who already shared something the rest of the room did not. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, was the date. I turned the photograph over twice, as though the date might change if I gave it another chance. March 12th, 6 days after the kiss outside Milo's, 3 weeks before the motel, more than a month before Nate ended our engagement. There were ordinary reasons for them to be in the same room. Meredith was my sister. Nate was my fiancé. Dad had just come home from the hospital, and Mom had invited everyone for a small birthday dinner because she believed cupcakes became medically responsible when served without candles. The photograph proved nothing by itself. But I remembered that night. Nate had offered to wash the dishes. Meredith had offered to dry. I had been touched by both gestures because I was tired enough to mistake guilt for kindness. Evan knocked while I was still staring at them. He came in carrying Thai food and a bottle of wine. "I have no opinions," he said. I left them in the truck. I handed him the photograph. He studied the front, then turned it over. "I can go get one opinion if you want." "What do you see?" "Your dad looks like he's being held hostage by a cupcake." Behind him. He looked again. I watched the exact second he noticed Nate and Meredith. "Oh," he said, "that's March 12th. Which is after, 6 days after Milo's." He set the photograph carefully beside the planner. "Do you remember them acting strange?" "No. I remember being grateful they did the dishes." Evan took containers from the bag and arranged them on the table. He did not say I should send the photograph to everyone. He did not say it proved Meredith was lying. He opened a carton of noodles and sniffed it. "They gave us chicken instead of tofu. Scandal." I could go back. I think the family has reached its betrayal limit for the weekend. We ate from the cartons. Halfway through dinner, I realized he had not asked about his question in the garage. "My dad knows your name?" I said. Evan looked up. "Congratulations to both of us. I told him I was seeing someone a few months ago. Did you tell him my name, or did he guess?" I told Mom. I assumed she told him. He gave me a look. "I hear it now," I said. "That's all I wanted." "No, it isn't." He waited. "You want to know if I'm hiding you. I want to know whether there's room for me in your actual life. Those aren't the same thing." "There is." "Okay. You don't sound convinced. I'm convinced you mean it." That is a terrible answer. It's an honest one. I put down my fork. My family takes information and turns it into work. If they know I'm dating someone, Mom wants to know when she'll meet him. Meredith wants to know whether he's attractive. Dad wants to know what he does for a living. Then they expect a dinner, and I have to choose the restaurant and make sure Mom can hear and tell Meredith not to ask if he's divorced. I am divorced. She'll ask why. Chronic snoring. You don't snore. The marriage ended before we could properly investigate. I smiled. Evan reached across the table and touched my wrist. I'm not asking you to give them access to me. I know. I'm asking you not to confuse keeping them out with keeping me out. The blue lamp glowed behind him. I had not turned it on. He must have when he came in. I'll work on it, I said. Good. That was a very annoying conversation. I had several opinions with dessert. I can go put them in the truck. He stayed that night. Nothing dramatic happened. We washed takeout containers neither of us intended to reuse, then reused them anyway. He fell asleep on his stomach with one arm hanging off the bed. At 2 a.m, I woke and listened to him breathe. No snoring, just one more story he had been willing to revise. At work, I kept the photograph in the front pocket of my purse. I told myself this was because it was old and fragile, not because leaving it at home felt like abandoning a witness. Tasha noticed something was wrong before lunch. She worked across from me and had the rare ability to gossip while maintaining flawless spreadsheets. Her desk was decorated with postcards from trips she actually took instead of merely discussing. We'd been friends for 6 years, though in the past 12 months I had canceled on her 4 times for family reasons. She rolled her chair around the divider. You've opened the same vendor invoice 9 times. Maybe it changes. Did your parents' anniversary go badly? What makes you think that? You're wearing the emergency cardigan. I looked down. The gray cardigan had a loose cuff and one missing button. I kept it over my chair for days when the office air conditioning became vindictive. My sister accused me of having an affair with her husband. Tasha blinked once. Nate? Yes. The same Nate who used to be your Nate? He was never good enough to be anybody's Nate, but yes. She rolled closer. Start at the beginning. I don't have time. You've spent 40 minutes rereading an invoice for printer toner. I told her the short version, which became the medium version when she asked why Meredith had followed Nate, and the long version when I reached Mom's confession. Tasha listened with her chin propped in her palm. When I finished, she said, I have one question. Everyone does. Why did you plan their anniversary? They're my parents. That isn't an answer. It's the traditional answer. You rented the house, bought the food, got the cake, made a schedule, and packed welcome baskets. Aunt Carol likes welcome baskets. Who doesn't? I don't know what you're asking. I'm asking whether they requested a weekend or whether your mother sighed near you until a lake house appeared. I opened the invoice again. Tasha nodded. That's what I thought. My father had heart surgery 7 years ago. He isn't made of glass. Didn't you cancel our Nashville trip because he had a cardiology appointment? He needed a driver. He has a wife. She hates city traffic. I hate your father's heart, Tasha said. It has terrible boundaries. I laughed loudly enough that the man in the next cubicle looked over. Tasha smiled, then grew serious. They call because you answer. Evan said something similar. I like Evan. You met him once. He helped carry my bookcase and didn't explain bookcases to me. A high standard. You'd be surprised. My phone buzzed. Dad had sent a photograph of a parking garage sign with the message, Your mother got us here. Only 2 wrong turns. His stress test was not until the following morning. Mom had insisted on driving into the city a day early so they could stay at a hotel near the hospital and avoid rush hour traffic. It was an expensive, inconvenient solution. It was also a solution. I wrote, Glad you made it. Then I returned to the invoice instead of calling to ask whether they had packed his medications. On Tuesday afternoon, Dad sent another message. Test done. Doctor says no new concerns. Mom says you owe her for parking. A minute later, he added, Joke. I stared at the second message longer than the first. Dad rarely clarified jokes. In our family, if a joke hurt someone, the injured person was expected to develop a better sense of humor. I wrote, Good news. Mom did not contact me. Meredith waited until Wednesday. She sent 3 photographs of her boxes stacked near my garage door, pictures she must have taken months earlier when searching for Christmas dishes. I can't come before Sunday. Do not throw anything away. I replied, Sunday is the deadline. She sent, You really enjoy this. I did not answer. That afternoon, an email arrived from Nate. The subject line was dates. For 10 minutes, I left it unopened. Then I closed my office door and clicked. Leah, I know you told me not to contact you. I'm sorry for ignoring that, but Meredith is telling your parents I invented the timeline. I found old messages in a backup. You deserve to have them. I told Frank the truth yesterday. I'm staying at a hotel. I have not asked you for anything, and I won't. Nate. There were 12 screenshots attached. I opened the first. The messages were between Nate and Meredith. March 1st. He had written that I would be staying with my parents after Dad's appointment. Meredith replied, "Then you don't have to be alone." March 6th showed Meredith asking him to meet her at Milo's. March 13th, the morning after Dad's birthday dinner, she wrote, "Last night was torture. She was right there and I couldn't look at you." Nate replied, "I know. I felt it too." My stomach turned. The April messages became less coded. Meredith complained that he had not left me yet. Nate said he was waiting until Dad was stable because he didn't want to seem heartless. On April 3rd, Meredith wrote, "I can still smell that awful motel soap on my skin." Then June 3rd, Meredith, "Tonight is our beginning. If anyone asks, nothing before tonight counts." Nate, "You know it doesn't work like that." Meredith, "It has to." I sat back. She had not forgotten the dates. She had not confused a kiss with a first date or blended one painful spring into another. She had deliberately moved the beginning until the overlap disappeared. June became March. After became before. By the time she accused me at the lake house, she had turned the entire sequence around so completely that I was standing in her place. The other woman. My office door opened 2 inches. Tasha looked in, saw my face, and entered without asking. What happened? I turned the monitor toward her. She read the final screenshot and sat down. "Are you going to send these to your family?" "I don't know. I would have sent them before opening the second attachment." "I know. What are you waiting for?" I thought about Dad saying he did not know yet what he was sorry for. Mom at my kitchen table defining a kiss into harmlessness. Meredith standing over the rosemary potatoes with her phone held like a verdict. "I want to know what they believe without being forced," I said. Tasha frowned. "Why? Because if they need 12 screenshots to consider that I might be telling the truth, then the screenshots aren't the problem." My phone rang. Meredith. I answered and said nothing. Her breathing filled the line. Then she asked, "Did he send them to you?" "Yes. They're out of context. Which date would improve with context?" "He manipulated me. You told him nothing before June counted. I was trying to protect everyone. You were protecting yourself. You have no idea what our marriage has been like." "No. I've worked very hard not to. He has compared me to you for 7 years. That was cruel of him. He still loves you. That doesn't make me love him. You let him in. You keep returning to Tuesday because you can't survive March." She inhaled sharply. I continued. "Mom admitted you told her. She had no right. That's your objection. You don't understand what she promised me." "What did she promise?" Meredith's voice shook. "That if I waited, if Nate ended things properly, this family would not punish me forever. He didn't end things properly. He ended them. After the motel. You think those messages make you better than me? No, I think the truth makes the dates true." She began crying then, but quietly. There was no audience to reward volume. "I'm coming Sunday," she said. "I'll be here. I don't want Evan there." My grip tightened around the phone. "How do you know his name?" Mom told me. "Of course she did. I want to speak to you alone. You're coming for boxes, not absolution. I'm coming for both." She hung up before I could tell her she was only entitled to one. She did not call again. Neither did Mom. Dad sent one message on Friday asking whether I had spoken to Meredith, then replied, "Understood," when I said yes. It was a strange use of the word from a man who understood almost nothing and was beginning to suspect it. Evan offered to be at the garage Sunday. "I can lift boxes and look judgmental," he said. "Two of my best skills." She asked to talk alone. "Do you want to talk alone?" I thought about it. "Yes. Then I'll be elsewhere." "That easy?" "No. I'll be at the coffee shop 2 blocks away imagining 17 emergencies, but I'll do it quietly." Meredith arrived 40 minutes late in a rented cargo van. She had pulled her hair into a loose knot and wore no makeup except mascara left over from some earlier attempt. It had collected in faint shadows beneath her eyes. She got out and looked at the wall of boxes arranged inside my open garage. "You counted them. I got bored at 12. I didn't realize there were so many. That's what everyone says about their possessions in someone else's house." She glanced toward the apartment building. "Is Evan here?" "No. Did you tell him everything?" "Yes." Her face tightened. "So a stranger knows." "He isn't a stranger to me. I've never met him." "That's not the same thing. I don't know why you're being defensive. I just asked. You followed your husband to my apartment and photographed him entering the building. Your questions have a longer tail now." Meredith opened the van's rear doors. Inside were a hand truck and 2 moving blankets. The rental company had printed, "You've got this," across the nearest wall in cheerful blue letters. Neither of us mentioned it. We loaded the first 3 boxes without speaking. Meredith tried to lift the tub of holiday dishes alone, then refused help until the bottom bowed. "It's going to break," I said. "I have it." "You don't." I said I have it. A stack of ceramic plates shifted with a heavy clunk. I took the other side. This is how metaphors happen. She let out a sound that was dangerously close to a laugh. Together, we moved the tub into the van. The 4th box contained the glass cylinders from her wedding. When Meredith lifted it, one flap came loose and a cylinder slid toward the opening. I caught it against my hip. She stared at the box. "Why do I still have these?" "Your emotional palate required glass." Oh, God, and white branches. The florist wanted eucalyptus. You said greenery felt judgmental. That doesn't even mean anything. It meant a lot at 2 in the morning. She laughed then. A real laugh. Brief and unwilling. For 1 second, we were sisters, in the way people meant when they used the word hopefully. We shared a memory no one else could enter. Then Meredith saw the MN Forever sign lying face down on top of another box, and the laugh went out of her. "Throw that away," she said. "It's yours. I don't want it. I didn't want it for 7 years." She picked up the sign and ran her thumb over the gold N. "Nate is getting an apartment." I thought he was in a hotel. He was. Now he's looking for a furnished place. "I'm sorry." She looked at me sharply. "Are you? I'm sorry you're hurting. That doesn't mean I'm sorry he left. He hasn't left. We're separating." "Okay, people separate and work things out. I didn't say they don't. You have that tone." "I have a voice, Meredith. You assign tone based on how much you dislike the words." She threw the sign into the van. It hit the floor hard enough to split one corner, but the gold forever remained intact. We returned to the garage. "Did you send the messages to Mom and Dad?" she asked. "No." "Why not?" "I haven't decided," Nate told Dad. "I know. Dad called me and asked if I slept with Nate before he broke up with you." "What did you say?" She folded the flaps over a box labeled college. "I told him it was complicated." "It isn't. It was. You slept with him on April 2nd. He left me April 21st. You make it sound like 2 calendar squares had sex. That would have been easier on everyone." Meredith's eyes flashed. "He told me he was going to leave you." "He didn't. He said the only reason he was waiting was your father's surgery, and you believed that made it kind." "No, I believed he was trapped. By me caring for Dad? By a relationship that had already ended emotionally. For him, maybe. For you, too. You don't get to tell me when my relationship ended. You were unhappy. So were you. Should I have slept with Cameron?" "Cameron and I weren't engaged. Neither were you and Nate." She turned away. The morning was warming quickly. Somewhere in the courtyard, Mrs. Alvarez's dog barked with the righteous fury of an animal that weighed 9 pounds. A garage door opened 2 units down, then closed again when the owner saw us. Meredith picked up a small box and held it against her chest. "Do you know what it was like being married to him?" she asked. "No." He compared everything. "I know. You don't." She set the box down again. "If I got angry, he said you never yelled. If I asked him to come to something with my friends, he said you didn't need to be escorted everywhere. When I wanted to redo the kitchen, he said you could make any place feel like home without spending money. That was cruel." He kept the blue mug you gave him. I gave him several mugs. He packed it when we moved. I broke it last winter. I looked at her. "By accident," she added. "I didn't ask. You were in our marriage all the time. I was not. Your absence was." He talked about you when he was angry and went silent when someone else did. "Mom watched me every time your name came up. Dad tried too hard to act normal around him. You sat across from us at holidays pretending none of it bothered you, which somehow made it worse. What did you want me to do? React. You asked me not to. I wanted to know you were human. I was trying to stay in the family. No, you were trying to make us all feel like terrible people without ever saying we were terrible people." I stepped back. It was unfair. It was not entirely false. I had attended their wedding with my back straight and my face composed. I had answered invasive questions with perfect politeness. I had refused to give Meredith any scene she could use as proof that I was bitter. Some part of that had been survival. Some part had been pride. If I could not be loved first, I would at least be the person whose behavior no one could criticize. Except they had criticized it anyway. "You wanted me to bleed where you could see it," I said. "I wanted to know I hadn't imagined hurting you." "You asked me to help with your wedding," Mom asked. "And you let her." I was overwhelmed. "You were always overwhelmed. So were you. You just made it look better." We stood in the open garage surrounded by the last 7 boxes. Meredith wiped beneath one eye. "You liked it." "What?" "Being the one everyone called." I laughed once. "That is an incredible thing to say. You complained, but you always answered. You knew Dad's prescriptions. You knew Mom's schedule. You knew where I kept my passport when I didn't. You got to be the capable one while the rest of us looked useless. I didn't make you useless. No, you just never left room for anyone else to help." The rosemary potatoes flashed through my mind. The lockbox, Dad's stress test. "You could have volunteered," I said. "You would have corrected how I did it. Because usually you didn't finish. Because usually you took over." There were years inside that argument, too many to settle between a plastic tub and a cargo van. I lifted the next box. "We're not going to solve this today. You mean you're done listening? I mean, both things can be true. I made being needed part of who I was. You took advantage of it." She stared at me, perhaps surprised I had admitted the first half. I carried the box to the van. Meredith followed without one. "I really thought you were sleeping with him," she said behind me. I set the box down. "Did you?" "I saw him leave our house after a fight. I followed him. He went straight to you. He went straight to the person you both betrayed. I didn't know what he would tell you." Then I saw the message on the iPad. The whole message. Yes. "And you took one line to the lake house." I panicked. "You prepared photographs. I was sitting in my car for 43 minutes. I had time to ask me. You wouldn't have told me. You didn't give me the chance." She wrapped both arms around herself. Every fight we've had for 7 years suddenly made sense. I thought he was going back to you. He never had the option. I didn't know that. You could have asked. You could have called me Tuesday. We were going in circles now, but the circles were not equal. She had followed him. I had opened a door. She had built an accusation. I had kept a conversation private for 3 days. "I should have told you he came," I said. She blinked. "I should not have let him use my apartment as a confession booth. That was bad judgment. It was not an affair." Her face tightened around the concession. "You admit it was wrong. I admit my part. Now admit yours. I already said I panicked. Say the accusation was false. It was based on what I believed. It was false." She looked toward the van. I waited. Finally, she said, "You are not sleeping with Nate. And There is no current affair. Tell Mom and Dad. I will. Tell Aunt Carol and Rick, too." They were at the table. She nodded once. "And correct the family group." Her head snapped back. "Why?" "Because you posted the anniversary picture with a loyalty speech after accusing me in front of everyone. That wasn't about you." "Of course it was. You want me to humiliate myself publicly. I want you to correct the story in the same places you spread it." Her mouth hardened. "And the messages? What about them?" "You won't send them." "I didn't offer a trade." "If I admit you didn't sleep with him, everyone will ask why he went there. Then tell them. That will destroy my marriage. Your marriage already knows when it started." "That isn't an answer." "No, it's a fact." Meredith began crying again, angrily this time. "You think this is revenge? I think it's consequence. Same thing to you. No. Revenge would be sending the screenshots before you got home from the lake." She looked at me, and I saw that she believed me. We loaded the remaining boxes. Meredith tried to leave the wedding decorations behind. I carried them to the van and set them beside the cracked sign. When the doors were closed, she stood with the keys in her hand. "Are we done?" she asked. "With the boxes." I meant us. I looked at my sister, the woman who had stolen from me, lied to me, called me the other woman, and still knew exactly which memory could make me laugh in a dusty garage. "That depends on what you do next," I said. She drove away. 10 minutes later, the family group conversation lit up. Meredith had written, "For clarity, Leah and Nate are not having an affair. I was upset at the lake and made an accusation before I had all the information. I regret involving everyone. Nothing about March, nothing about the motel, nothing about the photograph, nothing about what she had known when she stood over the rosemary potatoes. Mom reacted with a heart. Dad did not react at all." I put the phone down without responding. Aunt Carol reacted with a thumbs up, then apparently reconsidered and changed it to a heart. Rick wrote, "Glad this was cleared up." Mom added, "We all say things when we're hurt." That sentence made my fingers move. I typed, "Some of us say them with photographic exhibits." I deleted it. Then Dad entered the conversation. "This clears up the accusation from the lake. It does not clear up what happened 7 years ago." The typing indicator appeared beneath Meredith's name. It stayed there long enough for her to compose several versions of rage, then vanished. Mom called Dad directly. I knew because both of their names disappeared from the conversation at nearly the same time. Aunt Carol sent me a private message. "Well," I replied, "thank you for that thorough analysis. Anytime. I've always had a gift." Evan walked into the courtyard carrying fresh coffee just as I lowered the garage door. He looked at the empty space along the right wall. "Did she take everything?" "Yes, including Forever?" "Forever has a cracked corner, but it went." He handed me a cup. "How bad was it?" "We didn't slap each other. I'm revising my expectations upward." We sat on the low concrete ledge outside the garage. I told him about Meredith's marriage, Nate's comparisons, the blue mug, and the accusation that I had enjoyed being the person everyone needed. Evan listened without interrupting. "The worst part is she's not completely wrong," I said. "About which part?" "I did like being capable." "That's not a crime. I liked being the one Dad trusted with his medication. I liked that Mom called me when she couldn't solve something. I liked knowing I could walk into any mess and make it smaller. You still can. But if I said yes every time, I never had to ask whether they would choose me when I wasn't useful." Evan turned his coffee cup between his palms. "That's a different question. It has a pretty clear answer. Maybe. But being useful also kept you in control." I looked at him. He grimaced. That opinion escaped the truck. "Put it back." Trying. I took a drink. The coffee was too hot, which gave me something to blame for my expression. "What do you mean, in control? If you plan dinner, nobody picks a restaurant you hate. If you take your dad to the doctor, you know exactly what the doctor said. If you store the boxes, you know nothing gets lost." I stored Meredith's wedding decorations. Trust me, I was hoping for loss. I'm not saying they didn't use you. They did. I'm saying maybe you found a way to feel safe inside being used. That is an extremely rude thing to say before noon. I can come back at 1. I nudged his shoe with mine. He nudged back. The good news is you're bad at controlling me. I'm excellent at it. You hid your sister's existence until our 4th date. That was strategic disclosure. You tried to cancel our 2nd date because your mother needed help choosing a new dishwasher. She had narrowed it down to 14, and yet I arrived at the restaurant anyway. You're stubborn. So are you. It's romantic until somebody needs a dishwasher. I rested my head briefly against his shoulder. He did not turn the moment into a declaration. That was another form of generosity I was still learning to recognize. The family group remained silent until Tuesday afternoon, when Mom posted a photograph of a magazine page featuring a glazed turkey. Since this family could use something positive to look forward to, should we do chestnut stuffing this Thanksgiving? Thanksgiving was 6 weeks away. I had hosted it for the past 5 years because my apartment's open living area could fit a folding table, and because Mom claimed her oven ran hot on the left side. Every year, she arrived with one sweet potato casserole and referred to the meal as something we had pulled off. Meredith replied first, not chestnut. Nate hates chestnuts. 3 minutes later, she deleted it. Mom wrote, traditional stuffing then. I waited for someone to ask whether I was hosting. Nobody did. Instead, Mom began assigning food as if the location had been divinely settled. Carol volunteered pies. Rick claimed rolls because he had discovered a bakery and wanted credit for its labor. Dad offered to bring wine. Then Mom wrote, Leah, can you send last year's menu so we don't forget anything? I replied, I'm not hosting Thanksgiving this year. The group went quiet with an efficiency they had failed to demonstrate during my accusation. Mom called. Why would you announce that in the group? She asked. You asked me in the group. I asked for the menu. For the meal you assumed would happen in my home. We always have it at your place. 5 years is not always. Your apartment is the only space that works. Then this is a chance for another space to develop character. This family needs normalcy. I'm not a municipal building, Mom. No one said you were. You're treating my home like neutral territory. It is neutral. You threw me out of the anniversary house and drove leftover cake into this apartment while explaining why my sister's affair was easier to hide than my pain was to face. Nothing here feels neutral. You're going to hold one terrible weekend over us forever. It was 8 days ago. I have apologized. You said you were sorry I was hurt. I am sorry you were hurt. That is not the same sentence. She took a breath. What do you want me to say? That you helped Meredith lie about the dates because protecting her mattered more than telling me the truth. I have admitted mistakes. Not that one. I will not discuss this over the phone while you're in this mood. You called me. And now I'm ending the conversation. She hung up with the satisfaction of someone who believed ending a call restored authority. A minute later, Dad wrote in the group, Your mother and I can host. Oven still works on the right side. I laughed. Mom reacted with an angry face, removed it, then added a thumbs up. Dad came to my apartment Saturday morning. This time he texted before driving over, which I considered a small but meaningful miracle. He carried a paper bag from the diner near my parents' house. Breakfast sandwiches, he said when I opened the door. Your mother thinks I'm getting the tires rotated. Are you? Eventually. I let him in. Dad walked slowly through my apartment, as if seeing it for the first time, though he had helped me move a couch into it 4 years earlier. His eyes paused on the second hook near the door where Evan's jacket had hung the night before. Is that his? He asked. Evan's? Yes. So it's serious. Why does everyone keep saying that like they discovered a mole? Dad held up the bag. I brought sandwiches. Strong defense. We sat at the kitchen table. He unwrapped his sandwich but did not eat it. Nate sent me the messages, he said. Did you ask him to? No. He sent them after we spoke. He's on a distribution campaign. He says he's moving into an apartment. I know. Dad's eyebrows rose. You've talked to him? Meredith told me. Oh, I blocked Nate. I believe you. You believe me now. He looked down at his sandwich. I should have believed you then. Why didn't you? I was trying to understand what I was looking at. No, you were deciding which one of us would be easier to disappoint. Dad's jaw worked once. Maybe. His willingness to say it took some force out of me. He rubbed his thumb along the paper wrapper. When Meredith showed the picture, I thought about the wedding. What about it? And you looked miserable. I was. You said you were fine. You needed me to be fine. We asked whether you wanted to attend. After Mom told me your cardiologist said stress was bad for you, the cardiologist meant my stress. I'm sure my absence would have created a restful atmosphere. Dad winced. I continued. Did you think I'd spent 7 years waiting for Nate? I didn't know what to think. You didn't talk about relationships. You kept everyone at a distance. Then he went to your apartment. I kept my family at a distance because my family invited my former fiancé to Thanksgiving. That was for Meredith. Exactly. He looked toward the blue lamp. I'm sorry I didn't ask for the whole conversation. You asked how long he was there. I know. You made me sound guilty for needing 43 minutes to hear that the story of my own life was false. I know. I studied him. Dad had apologized to me before, but usually in plural. We're sorry things got heated. We're sorry feelings were hurt. This was different. He had finally found a subject and a verb. I went to my purse and brought back the photograph from Dad's birthday. He smiled faintly when he saw himself with the recovery pillow. Then he noticed Nate and Meredith in the doorway. March 12th, I said. He turned it over and saw Mom's handwriting. I remember that dinner. So do I. Your mother took this? Yes. He stared at it for a long time. They washed the dishes. I was grateful. I told Nate he was a good man for standing by you while I was sick. The shame in his voice did not make me feel better. Shame was still about him. Did Mom tell you about the kiss? I asked. After she came home from your apartment. What did she say? That Meredith confessed feelings for Nate and kissed him once. Diane said she believed it stopped there. She heard Meredith tell me nothing happened. Dad closed his eyes. I know. What are you going to do with that? I don't know. Then why are you here? To ask if you'll come to dinner next Sunday. Your mother, Meredith, and me? No. He looked up. Leah. I'm not sitting through another family event while everyone searches for language that makes the facts less rude. We need to talk. Then Meredith can finish correcting the story. She said there was no affair. She said there was no current affair. She still has everyone believing Nate came to me because of some unresolved romance. Carol knows that isn't true. Rick doesn't. The cousins don't. Everyone who saw her loyalty post doesn't. Dad sighed. Her marriage is falling apart. Mine did too. That was different. How? He had no answer. I wrapped the uneaten half of my sandwich. Dad watched me. If she tells the family everything, will you come? I'll consider it. And forgive her? No. What would be the point of the dinner? To hear the truth without being assigned an emotion afterward. He nodded slowly. At the door, he stopped and looked back at my kitchen. You really won't host Thanksgiving? No. Your mother has already bought 2 tablecloths. She can layer them. I've never cooked a turkey. I know. How hard can it be? Please make sure your life insurance is current. Dad laughed, and for 1 second I did too. Then he left to rotate the tires and convince my sister that access to me now had terms. 3 hours after Dad left, the family group lit up again. Meredith's message filled most of my screen. I need to correct more than I did before. Nate and I became emotionally involved before his relationship with Leah ended. We kissed for the first time on March 6th. We crossed another line on April 2nd. Nate ended his relationship with Leah on April 21st. We did not tell the family we were together until June, and I let people believe June was the beginning. Leah did not know, and she did not have an affair with Nate at any point. What I accused her of at the anniversary was not true. I read it 3 times. She had not used the word sex. She had not used the word lie. Crossed another line sounded like they had trespassed onto a golf course. But the dates were there, in order, where everyone could see them. Mom replied 19 minutes later. "Thank you for being honest. We love you both." It was an impressive sentence. She had managed to turn Meredith's confession into equal opportunity sisterhood before anyone else spoke. Aunt Carol wrote, "Leah, I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you at the lake." Rick added, "Me too. I should have asked what happened instead of staying out of it." A cousin in Ohio reacted with a shocked face, removed it, then reacted with praying hands. I had not remembered she was in the group. Dad wrote nothing. Neither did I. Meredith called that evening. "Dad sat in my kitchen until I posted it," she said. "I was washing a wine glass." "Did he write it for you?" "No." "Then I'm glad you did." "Are you?" "Yes." "You didn't respond." "What response were you hoping for?" "I don't know. Something." "Thank you for confirming you slept with my fiancé before he left me. You can say sex. I'm aware of what happened." You wrote "crossed another line." I didn't think Uncle Rick needed the motel details. Uncle Rick survived Vietnam and a colonoscopy. I think he can handle April 2nd. She made an irritated sound. I rinsed the glass. The dates were what mattered. Nate moved into the apartment today. "I'm sorry." "No, you're not. I'm sorry your marriage is ending painfully. I'm not sorry the truth is out. He says we built everything on a lie." "You did. So people can't change? 7 years mean nothing because of 3 dates? The dates aren't the whole marriage." "That's what I've been saying. They are the beginning. You can't keep calling the foundation decorative." She went quiet. Then she said, "Dad wants us all at dinner Sunday." "I know. Are you bringing Evan?" "No." "Why?" "Because this isn't his mess. You told him everything. Yes, you trust him with it, just not enough to bring him." I set the glass on the drying rack. "You don't get to use something he asked me in confidence." "Mom told me. Mom told you he was here. She did not tell you what he asked. You act different when you say his name." "How?" "Less alone?" The observation caught me off guard. Meredith continued before I could answer. "I'll see you Sunday." She hung up. On Thursday, Tasha appeared beside my desk wearing a denim jacket and holding 2 laminated name tags. "What are those?" "Trivia." "No. You promised me dinner. I promised to stop canceling dinner. This is dinner with questions." The tags said Tasha Know-It-All and Leah also present. I don't like the hierarchy. It was $5 extra to customize both. I went. We joined 2 of Tasha's friends at a neighborhood bar where the tables were sticky and the host pronounced charcuterie 3 different ways. I missed a call from Mom during the music round and did not step outside to return it. Our team lost because Evan, who arrived halfway through, after a delivery, insisted Fleetwood Mac had released Dreams in 1976. "It was recorded in 1976, he said. "That wasn't the question," Tasha told him. "Context matters. Not to laminated answer cards." I laughed until my face hurt. Mom's voicemail asked whether I still liked carrots with pot roast. She had called because after 38 years, she was suddenly uncertain about my relationship with carrots. I texted, "Carrots are fine." That was all. At my parents' house on Sunday, the dining room looked smaller than I remembered. Maybe because the 4 of us had spent so many years pretending there was room for every version of the story. Mom had used the good plates and ironed the cloth napkins. She hugged Meredith when she arrived. She tried to hug me too, but I stepped sideways to place my purse on a chair, and the moment passed without either of us acknowledging it. Dad carved the pot roast at the table. He had watched enough cooking videos to become briefly authoritative about resting meat. "If you cut too early, the juices run out," he said. Mom passed me the carrots. "Frank, nobody needs a lecture. It's not a lecture. It's science. You also said searing seals in moisture. That was before I found the second guy." Meredith almost smiled. Dinner began with questions about traffic. Mom asked whether Tasha was still planning a trip to Santa Fe. Dad described his cardiologist's shoes in surprising detail. Meredith ate only mashed potatoes and kept turning her wedding ring around her finger. No one mentioned Nate. I waited until Mom offered more gravy. Are we going to talk? Her hand tightened around the gravy boat. I thought we should eat first. Why? So nobody gets upset on an empty stomach. That has never stopped this family. Dad set down his fork. Leah's right. Mom stared at him as though he had betrayed a private agreement. He continued, Diane, tell her what you told me. I've already spoken to Leah. You explained, I said. That isn't the same thing. Mom folded her napkin beside her plate. I should have told you about the kiss. Yes, I should not have allowed Meredith to tell you nothing happened. Meredith's hand stopped turning the ring. Mom looked at her. I'm not placing all the blame on you. I didn't ask you to rescue me, Meredith said. You came to me crying. I was asking what to do, and I tried to help. You told me how long to wait before people would forgive me. Mom's face colored. I told you Nate needed to end one relationship before beginning another. He had already begun another. I did not know you were sleeping together. You knew enough, I said. Dad looked at Mom. You knew the first kiss was March 6th? I didn't write it on a calendar. You took the picture at my birthday dinner 6 days later. I took many pictures and watched me thank Nate for supporting Leah. Mom's voice sharpened. I was managing your recovery, Frank. I was terrified every time you coughed. I was not plotting against Leah. No one said plotting, I said. You keep defending yourself against a worse accusation so you don't have to answer the real one. What is the real one? That you knew Meredith was lying to me and decided I could survive it. She pushed her plate away. I failed you, she said. The sentence was clean enough that I did not trust it. Then she added, but I was trying to protect both my daughters. There it was. Meredith laughed under her breath. Mom turned. What? You weren't protecting me. You were keeping me from facing anything. I was afraid you would do something impulsive. You always say that. Because you did. I went to a lake. You disappeared. For one night. 7 years ago. You didn't answer your phone. So you decided I was too unstable for consequences. I decided you needed support. You decided Leah could carry everything and I couldn't carry myself. Mom's expression shifted from defense to hurt. I never thought you were incapable. You called her strong every time you wanted her to give something up. You called me sensitive every time you wanted everyone to give in. The room went still. Dad looked down at his plate. I said, she's right. Meredith glanced at me. Mom's eyes filled. So now I'm the villain to both of you. No, I said. You're our mother. That's why it mattered. She looked away. Dad cleared his throat. I let Diane handle things between you girls because I thought she understood this better. This? Meredith asked. Feelings. You have feelings, Dad. I'm becoming aware. A laugh escaped me. Meredith covered hers with her napkin. Dad looked almost pleased, then remembered the occasion. At the lake, I said. Did either of you believe me? Dad answered first. I wasn't sure. Mom. She pressed her lips together. Did you believe I was sleeping with Nate? For a few minutes, yes. Why? Because Meredith was certain. Because of the picture. Because you had let him into your apartment and kept it secret. Because I was the last person in this family who hadn't betrayed someone, and that made me overdue? No. Then why was it so easy? Mom looked at Meredith, then at Dad. Finally, she said, because I knew the marriage was in trouble, and I knew Nate had never fully let go of you. That has nothing to do with what I wanted. I know that now. You knew it then. You just didn't ask. Meredith leaned forward. Nate used Leah against me. He used you against me first, I said. She flinched. I'm not saying that to win. He took whatever one sister gave him and used it to punish the other. But you helped him. Then Mom helped you. Then Dad decided details were women's business. Everyone got to step away except me. Dad nodded slowly. That's fair. Mom said nothing. The pot roast cooled between us. After dinner, Mom brought out an apple crisp. No one wanted it, but everyone accepted a portion because dessert was the closest thing our family had to a ceasefire. Meredith found me by the front door while Mom packed leftovers into plastic containers. "Can we talk sometime?" she asked. We just did. Not with them. About us. I glanced toward the kitchen. Mom was telling Dad he had chosen the wrong size lid. "Not about Nate," I said. "No. And not so I can tell you everything is okay." "I know." I studied her face. "Not yet," I said. She nodded. Mom came toward us holding 2 containers. "Leah, take the roast. Meredith doesn't have anyone to cook for now." Meredith closed her eyes. I picked up my purse. "I don't need it, but it will go to waste." "Then freeze it. You have more freezer space." I opened the door. Behind me, Dad said, "Diane, we can handle the leftovers." It was a small sentence. Mom stopped. I walked to my car without a container in my hands. I drove to Evan's house instead of my apartment. I had been there twice, both times after carefully arranged dates, and I had never arrived without warning. His truck was in the driveway beside a dresser with no drawers. A lamp glowed behind the front window. I sat at the curb for 5 minutes arguing with myself, then walked up and knocked. Evan opened the door wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt with a streak of wood stain across the chest. "Hey," he said, "is this okay?" He looked past me toward my car. "Did you bring a turkey?" "No." "Then yes." Inside, his living room smelled faintly of sawdust and coffee. 2 dining chairs stood upside down on a drop cloth, their seats removed. A baseball game played silently on the television. "I left dinner without taking leftovers," I said. He closed the door. "That sounds serious." It was pot roast. My God, I came here instead of going home. I noticed. "I'm trying the thing where I don't keep you outside." He nodded solemnly. "Do I need to give you a tour? I've seen your house. Not the utility closet. I'm not ready for that level of intimacy." He smiled and opened his arms. I stepped into them. Evan did not ask me to summarize the dinner while I was still standing in the entryway. He put the baseball game back on, made popcorn, and let me sit beside him with my feet tucked under his leg. In the 7th inning, I told him Mom had believed Meredith for a few minutes. "What did she say when you asked why?" he asked. That Meredith sounded certain. "People are often most certain right before they ruin dinner. She also said Nate never let go of me." "Did he?" "I don't know. That's not your job to know." I looked at him. He kept watching the game. The sentence settled somewhere I had been holding open for Nate's explanation. Meredith texted me Tuesday. "Coffee Saturday?" "Not about Nate." I sent back, 10 o'clock. 1 hour. She replied, "I know how clocks work." I wrote, "Your history with dates is mixed." The dots appeared. Then she sent a single middle finger emoji. It was the first thing she had said to me in weeks that felt entirely honest. We met at a diner halfway between our homes. Meredith arrived carrying a red mixing bowl. "This is yours," she said. I stared at it. "You've had that since college." "I know. You told me it broke. I thought it did." "It was in the Christmas kitchen box." I took the bowl. There was a chip near the rim and a faded streak where I had once left it too close to a gas burner. "Thank you. I brought it so we'd have something to talk about if this went badly. That's optimistic for a bowl." The waitress poured coffee and asked if we wanted menus. Meredith said no. I said yes because 1 hour without toast seemed unnecessarily punishing. For several minutes, she folded and unfolded the paper wrapper from her straw. Finally, she said, "I lied at the garage." "About what?" How sure I was. I waited. "When I followed Nate, I thought he was going to you because he wanted to be with you. I believed that." "Okay." When I saw him leave, I was sure. Then I read the message. The whole message. "Yes." "And?" She rubbed the straw wrapper flat. "I knew what he meant by the truth. You knew he had told me about March. I knew it was possible. You asked him not to tell me. I told him it would destroy the family. So when you got to the lake house, I still thought something might have happened. Might. I didn't know. But you called me the other woman like you did." Her eyes filled. She looked toward the window rather than let the tears fall in my direction. I wanted them on my side, she said. There it was. Not panic, not confusion, a decision. You knew the dates were about to come out, I said. Yes. So you made me the betrayer first. I thought if Mom and Dad saw you let him in, they'd understand why I was afraid. You showed them half a message. I know. You didn't want understanding. You wanted a verdict before the evidence changed. I know. The waitress returned. I ordered wheat toast and eggs. Meredith asked for more coffee. When we were alone again, I said, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you said we couldn't talk unless it was about us. This is still about Nate." "No, it's about what I did to you." I sat back. Meredith wiped under one eye with the side of her finger. "I thought if they were angry at you, they couldn't turn around and ask me about the beginning. Mom had spent 7 years making sure nobody asked. Mom didn't make you accuse me. I know. Nate didn't make you. I know. And I didn't make you because I was composed at your wedding. I know." She said it quietly each time, without defense. It was more difficult to remain angry when she stopped handing me arguments, which was probably why apologies were supposed to include accountability. I remained angry anyway. "You watched them throw me out," I said. "Yes. You let Mom tell me I'd ruined their anniversary. Yes. You knew I had arranged the entire weekend. I knew. Did any part of you want to stop it?" Her mouth trembled. "When you picked up your bag, but you didn't. No." My breakfast arrived. The eggs had crisp brown edges, and the toast came with tiny foil packets of grape jelly. I opened one carefully, because ordinary tasks were sometimes the only thing between me and shouting. Meredith watched. "I hated you for leaving," she said. "That makes no sense." "I know. You left me there with them, and Nate wasn't answering. Mom kept asking whether I wanted tea. Dad went to bed. Carol and Rick disappeared to the motel. I had what I wanted, everyone believed me, and it felt awful. You were expecting me to stay and manage the aftermath of my own accusation. Yes." The word came out almost like a laugh. I spread jelly over the toast. "I'm not doing that anymore. I know. You keep saying that." "I'm trying not to explain. And that must be painful. It's horrible." I smiled despite myself. Meredith wrapped both hands around her coffee. "Did you ever want him back? Early on?" "Yes. Of course I did." She looked down. "I wanted the version of him I thought existed," I said. "I wanted to wake up before the breakup. I wanted you to tell me it had been a terrible mistake and that I was still your sister. You were." "No, I was the person you expected to forgive you. I loved you. You relied on me. Sometimes that looked like love." Her face tightened. I continued. "Sometimes it was love. That's what made it hard." She nodded slowly. "Nate thinks I never stopped competing with you," she said. "You married my fiancé. Competition seems like a fair hypothesis. I didn't want your life. You wanted him. I wanted him to choose me. Same result from where I was standing." She looked at the red bowl beside me. "Mom always talked about you like you were a finished person. Leah can handle it. Leah knows what to do. Leah doesn't need help. Every time I failed at something, she called you. That wasn't my fault, I know. But when Nate complained about you, I felt like someone had finally picked me as the easier one to love. The cruelty of it sat beside the sadness. I could see how it had happened without granting it innocence." "And then he spent 7 years comparing you to me," I said. "Yes. Sounds like a great prize." He wasn't. The answer surprised both of us. Meredith stared into her coffee. "I did love him," she said. "I still do. But I think part of our marriage was me trying to prove the beginning had been worth what it cost. Every bad year meant I had to try harder, because otherwise I did all that to you for nothing. What happens now? I don't know. He wants to stay separated. He says he doesn't trust who he is around me. That's a very Nate way to make leaving sound therapeutic." She laughed, then covered her mouth. He asked if I thought you'd ever speak to him again. No, I told him that. Thank you. He thinks confessing makes him brave. He cried in my armchair. Did he do the thing with his face? What thing? She folded her mouth inward and furrowed her brows in a painfully accurate imitation of Nate trying not to cry. I laughed so hard the waitress glanced over. Meredith laughed too. For several seconds, we were cruel and familiar and alive in the same memory. Then the laughter faded. I'm sorry, she said. Not for hurting me, not for how it happened, just the words without upholstery. I looked at her. I believe you, I said. I'm not ready to forgive you. I know, but we can have coffee again. Her eyes filled a second time. 1 hour? We'll see how the first 45 minutes go. She reached across the table, then stopped before touching my hand. That restraint mattered. Nate emailed me the next day. Meredith said you spoke. I'm glad. I'm not asking you to respond. I need you to know I'm sorry for what I did then and for bringing it back into your life now. I have no expectation that we will reconnect. I hope you're happy. I read it once. Then I replied, do not use me to explain your marriage or your separation. Do not compare Meredith to me. Do not ask either of us to carry your guilt. I am not available for a relationship, a friendship, or another apology. Please respect that. He answered, I will. I blocked the email address. The following weeks were oddly quiet. Mom stopped calling with errands. At first, I assumed she was punishing me. Then Dad called to ask how long a frozen turkey needed to thaw. I don't know the weight, I said. 22 pounds. For 4 people? Rick and Carol are coming. That still seems aggressive. The smaller ones looked sad. I started calculating days, then stopped. The instructions are probably online. I thought you might know. I probably do. Dad waited. But you can know too, I said. Right. The next morning he texted, 5 days in refrigerator. I have created a schedule. I wrote, welcome to leadership. He sent a photograph of a handwritten turkey timetable taped to the refrigerator. Mom had added 3 question marks beside Thursday morning. For Thanksgiving, Tasha planned to visit friends in Santa Fe. Aunt Carol was bringing pies. Rick had upgraded himself from rolls to appetizers. Mom had not asked me to cook anything. Evan still had no invitation. I found him in his workshop sanding the edge of the same drawerless dresser I had seen weeks earlier. My parents are hosting Thanksgiving, I said. I heard rumors of a very large turkey. Do you want to come? He stopped sanding. I added, not because I need protection, not because I need you to carry anything, although Dad may ask you to carve. Is your mother going to ask why I'm divorced? Almost certainly. Can I tell her chronic snoring? You can tell her whatever you want. He set down the sandpaper. Do they know I'm coming? Not yet. Do you want me there? Yes. He smiled. I took out my phone, opened the family group, and typed, Evan will be joining me for Thanksgiving. Mom replied first. We'll set another place. No questions. No instructions. Just room. She did not ask what he ate, whether he drank, or why he was divorced. 2 days later, she sent him a direct invitation through me anyway. Tell Evan dinner is at 3, but we're eating when the turkey is done, which may be June. Dad had discovered that thawing a turkey and cooking one were separate administrative departments. When Evan and I arrived at my parents' house, Frank was standing in the driveway wearing an apron that said, Kiss the cook, and holding a meat thermometer. Is this supposed to go in the breast or the thigh? He asked, before we had closed the car doors. Hello to you too, I said. Hi. Breast or thigh? Thickest part of the thigh, but don't touch bone. Evan lifted the 2 bottles of wine he was carrying. I was told not to bring anything that required heat. Smart man, Dad said. Come inside and meet the crisis. The kitchen looked like a cooking show filmed during an evacuation. Every cabinet door stood open. 3 dirty bowls occupied the sink, and Mom had covered the counters with lists written on yellow legal paper. The 22-pound turkey remained in the oven, its skin the color of weak tea. Meredith was whisking gravy in a saucepan while reading instructions from her phone. "Don't stop stirring," Mom told her. "I'm not." "You stopped to answer me. My wrist is cramping. Switch hands." "Do you think my other wrist trained for this?" Aunt Carol sat at the table trimming burned edges from 2 pies. Rick had brought enough cheese for a conference. Mom hugged me lightly, then turned to Evan. "So," she said. "So," he replied. I waited for the questions. Mom smiled. "We're glad you came. Thank you for having me. You can put your jacket in Frank's office. Leah knows where." I opened my mouth to answer. Dad pointed down the hall. "First door on the right." It was a tiny exchange, barely worth noticing. Still, I noticed. Evan carried our coats away by himself. Mom looked at the wine. "Did I tell you we needed red?" "No," I said. "Oh. Well, you knew." I felt the old satisfaction rise before I could stop it. Of course I knew. Pot roast needed red wine. Turkey could take either, but Mom preferred Pinot Noir, and Dad liked anything with a label he could pronounce. Then Evan returned and handed the bottles to Dad. "You choose," he said. "One's red, one's white." Dad inspected them. "We'll open both." The world continued. The turkey reached a safe temperature at 512. Dad announced this by entering the living room with both arms raised, thermometer in one hand. "There will be no food poisoning," he said. "Put that on the invitation next year," Carol suggested. Mom began moving dishes to the dining room. My body responded before I thought. I collected empty glasses, straightened the stack of napkins, and reached for the gravy boat. Meredith took it first. "I have it," she said. The sentence usually made my shoulders tighten. This time she did have it. At the table, Evan sat between me and Aunt Carol. Meredith sat across from us. Mom had added a narrow folding table to the end for the food because her dining table was not large enough for 8 adults and a turkey with its own weather system. Dad stood to carve. The first slice detached with a tearing sound. "Beautiful," Rick said supportively. "It's upside down," Meredith said. Dad stared at the bird. "What? You cooked it breast side down." Mom leaned closer. "That explains why it looked strange. You said it looked perfect. I was encouraging you. I watched 3 videos. Were any of them about turkey?" Evan pressed his lips together. Dad looked at me. Everyone did. There it was, the tiny pause in which the family waited for me to convert a mistake into a solution. I took a drink of wine. "The breast is probably very moist," I said. Dad looked back at the turkey. Then I meant to do it. He turned the platter, found a better angle, and continued carving. Nothing terrible happened. The slices were uneven. One of them resembled the state of Florida. We ate them anyway. Conversation stayed shallow through the first half of dinner. Carol discussed the motel pillows from the anniversary weekend in enough detail to suggest a sponsorship. Rick explained his cheese choices. Mom asked Evan what kind of furniture he restored, and Evan answered without making the work sound grander than it was. "So you repair things people think are ruined?" Meredith asked. "Sometimes." "How do you know when something isn't worth fixing?" The table quieted by 1 degree. Evan considered her question, usually when the repair would leave less original material than replacement. Meredith looked at the mashed potatoes. "That seems clear." "It isn't," he said. "People get attached to damage." Her eyes lifted. "Sometimes a chair matters because someone remembers it in a certain kitchen," Evan continued. "Then the repair isn't about market value. You just have to be honest about whether you want the chair or the memory." Mom looked at me. I looked at my plate. Dad said, "This table has a wobble." "Frank?" Mom said. "What?" "He does furniture." Evan laughed. "I can look at it after dinner. You are not working on Thanksgiving," I said. "It's a wobble, not a dining room set." Dad brightened. "I have cardboard under the left leg. Frank. We've lived with it for 12 years. You told me it was the floor. It might also be the floor." The moment passed, but Meredith did not ask Evan another question about repair. After dinner, Mom stood and began collecting plates. I picked up mine. Dad took it from my hand. "You're a guest." "I can carry a plate." "I know." He stacked it with his own. Rick rose to help. Carol wrapped the remaining pie. Meredith carried the gravy boat into the kitchen. Within minutes, everyone had assigned themselves something without asking me to organize them. I sat at the table beside Evan. "This is unsettling," I said. "Should we break something?" Dad already cooked the turkey upside down. Successful innovation. From the kitchen came the sound of a pan hitting the floor. Mom yelled, "Nobody move." Meredith said, "It's empty." I said nobody move because there's gravy on the tile. That means somebody should move for a towel. Dad opened the wrong drawer 3 times. I remained in my chair. Evan rested his hand on my knee beneath the table. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I don't know what to do with my hands." Revolutionary. Mom came back into the dining room carrying 2 empty plastic containers. "Leah, may I talk to you?" Evan's hand moved away. "I'll help Frank with the table." "You don't have to leave," Mom said. "I know." He left anyway, following Dad toward the garage in search of tools. Mom sat across from me. The kitchen noise continued behind her. Meredith argued with Rick about whether aluminum foil had a correct side. Aunt Carol opened every cabinet while looking for cinnamon. Mom folded the containers inside each other. "I owe you a better apology," she said. I waited. She looked down at the lids. "I knew Meredith had kissed Nate. I knew it happened while you were together. I heard her tell you nothing had happened, and I let that lie stand." Her voice was quiet but steady. "I told myself I was protecting your father's health. I told myself Meredith was too unstable to face what she'd done. I told myself you already knew the relationship was ending. I didn't. I know. You knew then." She swallowed. Yes, the word did more than all her explanations. Mom continued, "I helped them move the dates because I wanted the story to become easier. When they told everyone June, I didn't correct it. When they married, I acted as if the marriage made the beginning less wrong." She turned one of the plastic lids over. "And at the lake, I believed Meredith before I asked you. Partly because she was crying. Partly because I knew Nate had regrets. Mostly because believing her put me back in the role I understood. She was hurt, and you could handle being blamed until I fixed things." I could hear Meredith laughing in the kitchen at something Aunt Carol said. It was strange to listen to her sound happy while Mom dismantled the machinery that had protected her. "I didn't fix anything," Mom said. "I made it worse." "Yes. I'm sorry." I looked at her. She did not add that she loved us both. She did not say she had done her best. She did not ask whether I understood. "What do you want me to do with that?" I asked. "Nothing." The answer surprised me. "You don't have to forgive me tonight. You don't have to make me feel better. I needed to say it correctly." I felt tears rise and hated how quickly they came. Mom's eyes filled too, but she stayed in her chair. She did not reach across the table and force touch into the moment. "I don't know what our relationship is now," I said. "Neither do I. I'm not going back to being the person you call for everything. I know, you'll forget. I might." "What happens then?" "You tell me no. You don't punish me for it." She nodded. "I'll try not to. That is not as reassuring as you think. It's more honest." That was true. I wiped my face with the cloth napkin. Mom looked toward the kitchen. "Your sister wants to help with cleanup, but she has broken 1 wine glass. Only 1? So far." We sat quietly. Then Mom said, "I like Evan. You spoke to him for 8 minutes. He seems calm. So did Nate." She winced. "Sorry," I said. "No, fair. He isn't calm all the time. He gets annoyed when I pretend not to need anyone. Good. He also has opinions. Less good." I smiled. Mom fitted the lids onto the containers. "Would you take some turkey?" The question came carefully. "No." "Okay." She stood without arguing. When everyone returned to the table for pie, Meredith sat beside me instead of across from me. She did not mention the conversation with Mom. Dad poured coffee. Evan reported that the table itself was level, but the dining room floor was not. "I knew it," Dad said. "You said both things," Mom reminded him. "That improves my odds. We ate the trimmed pies. Carol's apple filling was excellent, and the crust looked as if it had survived a small fire. Nobody asked Meredith about Nate. Nobody asked me whether I was still angry. As Evan and I were leaving, Dad followed us to the porch. "I'm retiring in February," he said. I turned. "You finally picked a date? Last Friday of the month. Congratulations. Your mother wants to do a dinner." Mom appeared behind him. "I already reserved the private room at Bellini's." Dad added, "She confirmed it twice." "I confirmed once," Mom said. "Then your father called and changed the number. I added Rick. You added 2 people and subtracted 1. I thought Carol was implied." Mom looked at me. "You only need to come. No seating chart, no cake order, no offer disguised as a need." "Okay," I said, "I'll come." Dad smiled. Evan and I walked to the car carrying nothing but our coats. Behind us, my family stayed inside to finish the dishes. By the second week of December, Mom forgot. She called while I was leaving work and asked if I could pick up Frank's prescription because the pharmacy was practically on my way. It was 9 miles in the opposite direction. "No," I said. There was a familiar pause, the one in which she waited for me to soften the word. I did not. "All right," she said finally. "I'll go after dinner. Okay?" "You don't have plans?" "Yes." "With Evan?" "Yes." "What are you doing?" "I thought we were discussing Dad's prescription." "We were. I'm making conversation now." I smiled despite myself. "We're going to Tasha's." "Oh." "Tell her I said hello." "I will." Mom did not sigh. She did not mention city traffic, darkness, or how tired she was. Dad's medication made it into the house without my involvement. The following morning, she texted, "Picked it up. No crisis," I replied. "Proud of you." She sent an eye roll emoji, which was more honest than a heart. Change did not arrive cleanly. Mom still asked me for information she could find herself. Dad continued forwarding medical appointment confirmations until I called and asked what he expected me to do with them. "Know where I am," he said. "Mom knows. I like you to know too." "Why?" He considered it. "Habit. Try a new one." After that, he entered his appointments into his own phone calendar. For the first month, he sent me screenshots as proof. I did not tell him he was creating a different kind of work. Meredith and I had coffee twice before Christmas. The first time, she spent 20 minutes discussing Nate's apartment before catching herself. "Sorry," she said. "I said this wouldn't be about him." "You did. I don't know what else to talk about. That's a problem." "I know." She twisted the cardboard sleeve around her cup. "Do you want to hear about my job? I would love to hear about your job." She worked in marketing for a regional grocery chain. I knew the company, her title, and that she hated one of her supervisors. But I had not asked what she actually did in years. She told me about a campaign involving locally made soup that had gone wrong because somebody photographed the wrong bowl. "That sounds serious," I said. "It was bisque in a chowder market. Thoughts and prayers." She laughed. At the end of coffee, she said, "Nate called last night." I waited. "I didn't call you. That is technically what you're doing now. But not last night." Progress. He wanted to talk about trying again. "What did you say?" "That I don't know who I am when I'm not trying to win something." It was the kind of sentence Meredith once would have delivered like a line in a play. This time, she looked embarrassed by it. What did he say? He said he understood. Nate understands everything 5 minutes after it would be useful. She smiled. I told him I needed more time. "Okay, you're not going to tell me what to do?" "No, that's unsettling. You'll survive." The second coffee lasted an hour and 17 minutes. Neither of us mentioned the limit. For Christmas, Mom hosted brunch and assigned each person 1 dish through the family group. She gave me fruit salad. I stared at the message. Fruit salad was not a responsibility. It required no oven coordination, no shopping at 3 stores, no access to Mom's kitchen the night before. It was fruit in a bowl. I brought it in the red mixing bowl Meredith had returned. She noticed the chipped rim when I set it on the table. "You kept it," she said. "It's mine, I know." That was all. Nate honored my request. No calls, no emails, no surprise visits. The absence felt strange for a while, not because I missed him, but because I had spent months bracing for his next attempt to make remorse a shared activity. Eventually, the tension left with nothing to push against. I met his sister over dinner. I saw the utility closet. It was disappointing. "You built it up too much," I told him. "There's a water heater. I've seen better." Our relationship did not become a reward for surviving my family. Evan annoyed me. I annoyed him. Once he left a wet towel on my bed and defended himself by saying it was only there for a minute, which led to a discussion about whether a minute was a measurement or an excuse. But when we disagreed, he did not call my mother. He did not compare me to anyone else. He did not make me prove love by becoming useful. Dad's retirement dinner arrived with sleet. Bellini's windows glowed gold against the gray evening. Evan and I reached the restaurant 10 minutes early because Dad believed lateness was a character flaw and had passed that one successfully to me. Aunt Carol and Rick waited in the lobby with a gift bag large enough to hold a lawnmower. Meredith stood near the coat check wearing a dark green dress I had never seen before. She had stopped wearing her wedding ring. The pale band around her finger had faded, but not disappeared. Mom crossed the lobby toward us with the expression she usually wore before explaining why something was technically not her fault. "There's a small issue," she said. "What happened?" I asked. "The reservation is for next Friday." I looked at her. "I said the last Friday," Dad explained behind her. She heard the last Friday of the month. "It is the last Friday of the month," Mom said. "Next week is the last Friday before my official retirement date. That is not how Fridays work, Frank." The private room was occupied by an engagement party. Pink flowers filled the doorway, and a woman in a silver dress was standing beneath a balloon arch while several adults applauded. Our group included my parents, Meredith, Evan, Carol, Rick, Tasha, Dad's former supervisor, and 4 coworkers. Most of them were arriving now, shaking sleet from their coats and looking toward me. I felt the shift before anyone spoke. Mom stopped arguing. Dad rubbed the back of his neck. Carol held the giant gift bag closer. Meredith looked from the hostess to the growing group. Then everyone looked at me. The old machinery clicked into place. I knew what to do. I could ask for the manager. I could call the restaurant 2 blocks away. I could calculate who would fit in which cars and move 14 adults before the appetizers at the engagement party reached the room. The hostess turned to me as though she recognized authority. "I'm very sorry," she said. "We have the reservation in our system for next week." I took a sip of wine from the glass Evan had just handed me. "That's unfortunate," I said. Nobody moved. Dad looked at me. I took another sip. Something changed in his face. Not disappointment, recognition. "We can handle it," he said. He turned to the hostess. "What do you have available tonight? There are 2 tables near the bar, but they aren't together." "We'll take them," Mom said. Dad's former supervisor pointed toward a long high top occupied by 4 people finishing dessert. "What about that one?" The hostess said it would be free in 20 minutes. Meredith already had her phone out. "There's an Italian place across the street with a private room." "Do they have veal?" Rick asked. "Nobody is reorganizing retirement around your veal," Carol told him. Tasha moved beside Meredith. "I'll call. You ask this place whether they can push the bar tables together." Mom began counting chairs. Dad offered to buy drinks while we waited. Evan stood beside me and watched the family scatter into useful motion. "You okay?" he asked, trying not to make a seating chart in my head. "Who did you put by the bathroom?" "Rick." Reasonable. The restaurant found us space in an alcove near the bar. It was not private, and 14 people fit only after the hostess added a small round table that made the arrangement look like a punctuation error. Meredith negotiated extra bread. Mom moved 2 chairs. Dad's former supervisor volunteered to sit at the end where the floor sloped. Within 30 minutes, everyone was seated. No one died. Dad raised his glass. "I planned to give a long speech in the private room," he said, "but apparently that speech is reserved for next Friday." Everyone laughed. He looked down the uneven line of tables. I worked 36 years at a job where I was very good at solving other people's problems. At home, I mostly let other people solve mine. Mom looked at him. Dad's eyes found me. I'm retiring from one of those things, he said. I'm working on the other. The toast was simple. He thanked his co-workers, Rick and Carol, Mom, Meredith, and me. He thanked Evan for fixing the dining table, though the dining table had never been broken. Evan accepted the credit anyway. Dinner ran late. Plates had to be passed awkwardly around the round table at the end. Carol's sleeve dipped into marinara. Tasha argued with Dad's former supervisor about whether retirement watches were ominous. Meredith ate an entire bowl of soup and did not photograph it for work. Mom had ordered a cake without asking for my help. The inscription said, "Happy Retirement," missing an E. She was furious. Dad laughed so hard he had to remove his glasses. "Leave it," he said. "It's memorable." When the bill came, 3 people reached for it. I did not. Dad paid for dinner. Meredith covered the drinks we had ordered while waiting. Rick slipped cash under the bread plate and announced that nobody could stop him. Afterward, while everyone collected coats, Mom approached me with a foil container. "Chicken," she said. "They packed too much." "No, thank you." She glanced at the container, then nodded. "I'll take it. No argument. No guilt." The chicken remained chicken. Dad joined us wearing the new retirement watch his co-workers had given him. "Your next cardiology appointment is Wednesday," Mom said to him. Then she looked at me out of habit. "I was going to ask, Jerry's taking me," Dad said. "We arranged it last week." Jerry, his former supervisor, lifted one hand from across the lobby. 7:30, Frank, I know. You said 7:15. That was pickup time." Mom frowned. "You need to leave earlier." Dad touched her shoulder. "We have it handled." I felt something inside me loosen. Being unnecessary was not the same as being unwanted. I had understood that intellectually for years. It took my father arranging a ride with a man who wore orthopedic shoes for my body to believe it. Meredith was waiting near the front doors. "Can I walk out with you?" she asked. Evan looked at me. "I'll bring the car around. You don't have to." "I know." He kissed my cheek and went into the sleet. Meredith and I stood beneath the restaurant awning. Across the street, traffic moved through wet yellow light. She held her coat closed at her throat. "Nate and I are staying separated," she said. I looked at her. "I know I said this wouldn't be about him. You lasted nearly 4 months. Personal best. Why are you telling me? Because I'm done asking you to help me interpret it. That's promising." She looked toward the street. He wanted counseling. I said maybe later. I need to figure out whether I want the marriage or just don't want to admit it. Failed. That sounds wise. I hate wise. I know. She smiled faintly. Then she said, "Do you think we can ever be sisters again?" Cars hissed over the wet pavement. Behind us, Mom was telling Carol the foil chicken could not sit in the car all night. Dad had begun showing his retirement watch to the hostess. "We never stopped being sisters," I said. "That was part of the problem." Meredith's smile disappeared. "If we try again, it has to be different. No calling me about Nate. No telling Mom your version before you tell me the truth. No borrowing things and leaving them with me for 7 years. No expecting me to answer every time. What if it's important? You think everything is important when you're upset. That's fair. And I'm not promising to trust you because you apologized. I know. It's going to be slow. Okay? Separately from Mom and Dad. They don't get to negotiate for us." "Okay." She nodded, but tears had gathered in her eyes. I waited. She did not make them my responsibility. After a moment, she said, "Can I hug you?" I thought about it. Then I opened my arms. She held me tightly for 3 seconds and let go first. Evan pulled to the curb. Meredith stepped back beneath the awning. "Good night, Leah. Good night." I got into the car. As we drove away, I looked through the rear window. My family stood together outside the restaurant. Dad with his new watch, Mom holding leftover chicken, Carol with the enormous gift bag, Rick waving for no apparent reason, and Meredith in her green dress. Nobody was waiting for me to turn around and fix the next thing. They were only watching me leave. I faced forward and took Evan's hand.